Tendre la XboxEra is about to enter its 5th year, and that's all thanks to you. If you're new here, let me fill you in. XboxEra is a platform for the Xbox community with best-in-class forums, a kick-ass Discord server, and of course XboxEra.com, chock full of the latest news, reviews and more, all focused on your favourite platform, Xbox. It's every Xbox fan's gateway to the best of XboxEra. Our incredible podcast listened to in over 50 countries across the planet, our own digital store for games and codes, our merch store for the coolest of Xbox threads, and of course Dayone, where you can track, rate and discuss your favourite games on Xbox Game Pass. XboxEra is built for you, and it's completely funded by you. If you value having a publication truly focused on your preferred place to play, you can support us directly via Patreon. Just head to patreon.com/XboxEra. You get cool swag and awesome perks, and we get to keep doing what we do. Become a part of the best Xbox community on the internet and help us build the next 5 years of XboxEra. Thank you for your support.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of XboxEra's Headlines. It's June 11th, 2024, and this time around you have myself, Aarsal, and Jesse. We'll be taking you through all the latest in gaming news from across the industry. As a bonus for our patrons, we'll make an audio version of these episodes available for you via Patreon for use in your preferred podcast app. And if you're on Spotify, you can link your account to Patreon and listen to it within the app. Right away, of course, this is a bit of a change. I think it's always been John and Jesse since the show's inception a few weeks ago. John is either still recovering or still on his way. I can't remember which.
He just landed, but he's still on the way home from the airport, and he's like, okay, yeah, not going to be able to make it.
Okay.
He had been hoping to. That way it would have been you two, and I just would have been in the background, but no, he was unable to make it. He will be back on Thursday, and we'll go over some more news, especially if anything hits. And then he will definitely be back for the big podcast Saturday. The question mark we have is our subathon on Friday, because we don't know what's going on with the PayPal. It had been set up and running for months, and now it's not working. As long as we get that fixed, Friday, full day-long subathon, probably going up close to the podcast to try and pay for John's trip to LA and all of our trip to Germany for Gamescom in August. But Sol, it is very nice to have you here, even though for some reason you're very fuzzy for me. So I apologize to people watching at home.
I don't know. Maybe I'll turn my camera on and off at one point. But for those of you listening in, definitely going to tune in both Friday if it happens and Saturday for sure, because John was at LA. He was there for a while. It's gonna be really cool hearing his experiences there. Like I'm looking forward. I haven't even spoken to him yet, man. I don't know what the heck.
Yeah, he just landed in. He lost 8 hours of sleep going from when you're going east from LA back to London. Take your plane back to London. Shaun of the Dead. Yeah, probably. Because our plan for Gamescom is going to be similar, where Nick, myself, and I think you are all flying into London first.
So I'm technically flying into Germany, but I'm flying back into London for 3 days. And then I'll fly back with you guys.
Yeah, so we're planning to go London, hang out at John's house, do a podcast while we're there, that type of stuff, all in person. Then go to Germany. Everyone does Gamescom, do tons of stuff there. Back to John's house for like a day to not feel completely burnt out, and then flying back. So it should be a lot of fun, but to be able to do that, it's going to cost a lot of money. It's like £8,000 conservatively for the flights and the hotels. Man, but we are fully accredited for Gamescom, which is real cool.
And it'll be the first time the team is fully together, or like a large chunk of it. I think
it'll be the first time any of us are in person on anything together.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that'd be super cool. But okay, we'll talk all about that in the weekend at the podcast. For now, this is Headlines. It's about the news that's happened, and there's obviously been a ton. In today's episode, we might go over the usual hour because we're going to cover a bit of Summer Game Fest. Obviously, the main Xbox.
Seems likely.
Most likely. We'll cover a bit of that. We'll cover the main Xbox show. We'll cover some of the interviews and the Xbox Wire links and some of the deep dives that we've had. So without further ado, let's jump right in. And we'll start off with what I think was the so-called E3 of Dreams level announcement. Gears of War E-Day. No one saw this coming.
No.
No one saw this coming. Like, even to the point where when the trailer's playing, I'm thinking, oh, are they like reversing the timeline? Are they just showing a flashback? Are they going to kill Marcus off or something? What's going on? And then, of course, Dom shows up in one of the coolest, most emotional moments I've seen in a video game trailer. And then the title comes, and you instantly, anyone that knows Gears of War, even a little bit, instantly knows then what the game is, right? It's not a reboot. It's not a remake. It's a prequel set years before the events of the first game in a story we've all wanted to play for so long.
It was like when we first saw it, I was like, oh, collection. But then no, it's like, he's really young. And Nick is like, that's JD. Like, they did a good job then, because that is 21-year-old Marcus Phoenix before all the battle scarring and everything, because it's 14 years before Gears of War, where he was 35. So it's not only a prequel, it's a really way in the past prequel. And it was funny because I don't think either of you guys picked up on Mad World. And the whole time I was like, I did, but I thought it was so obvious that I didn't call it out. But yeah, it is very funny. There was a Jeff Keighley tweet where he talked about how Blur worked on the CG. And I like, yeah, everything is CG. It is computer generated. But this, as they have claimed, this is what the game is intended to look like. These are in-game assets. This is running in-engine. It's not a pre-rendered thing. It's like running... It obviously has direction. It is a movie made with the game engine and assets by Blur in conjunction with the Coalition. But it's 100 times the detail of the unbelievably good-looking Gears 5. Like, it's insane. When you put them side by side, you're like, Gears 5 used to look really good. But it's also that thing, because people kept doing this throughout the show. There were other things like State of Decay, which is a movie shot with the game.
Yep.
But people are like, oh, this is just a CG trailer. Like, I was watching some reactions and people are like, it was all CG trailers. I'm like, no, if you guys know what they're doing with Unreal Engine, that's not what they're going for. They're not going for pre-rendered. The games just look so good if they hit their targets that you think this is all pre-rendered, like with Fable and State of Decay and stuff.
We'll talk about it later in the show, but this was the year, I think, that clearly showcased that in-engine is not the same thing as pure CGI, which is something I was trying to tell Nick for a while after the Compulsion reveal trailer last year, right? I have Jamir Blanco's tweet up, who I think works at Activision, who had to basically clarify Jeff's super weird instant tweet where he says, the amazing Gears piece you saw was full real time, with real-time models, textures, environments, all within Unreal Engine 5. Saying it's CGI from Blur diminishes all the technical achievements you probably didn't notice. He's like, though it looks like another pre-rendered CGI piece from Blur, it was actually a real-time masterpiece using in-game engine assets and ray traced lighting in the same engine that the game would play. Yeah, like, why is anyone doubting the Coalition Unreal Engine 5?
It's tough when you just see something that looks so much better, because it's not the photo real. They are stylized. They're not going for photo real like Hellblade 2. So I do think it's not that, oh, well, this is very obviously motion capture and photo scans and it's real people that you're reproducing inside an engine. This is super heavily drawn from just incredible artwork alongside it. Like a lot of Hellblade was actual real life artwork of making props and outfits and stuff.
Yes.
This is all doing that all digital, obviously, because the scale is so big. And when you look at the city, and it just looks incredibly clean. Like, you can go back and you look at Batman Arkham City and Arkham Knight, and you're like, holy shit, this looks awesome. But this looks like an awesome video game. But then you look at this last shot here, where they're just standing there and staring, and you just look, and in 4K, when you see the detail on everything, it's just like, wow. Like, how is it so clean? And the rubble
zoom in
front
of the cogs, like that gets me every time. Fantastic shot. For those wondering, because I know a lot of people saw this trailer, saw the title, and they're like, "Oh, are they just completely, going away from Gears 4 and 5 story?" And no, they're not. From the Xbox Wire post they posted immediately after, they actually timed those really well, by the way.
They did not spoil anything except for their store with Call of Duty. Them and PlayStation both went live a little early.
Yeah. Which to be fair is barely a spoiler. We knew it was there. All we got was the release date.
It was like story synopsis and stuff. That was it.
Okay, so I'll just quickly read some of their stuff. They say we're super proud of Gears 4 and 5 and the stories that were told. We're not retreating from that story. We're not retreating from that storyline in any way. But in this moment, we had an opportunity to write our next step, and this one just felt too good to miss. It's important to note that E-Day is not a spin-off. It's a completely new entry to the mainline series set earlier in the timeline. The events of the game not only serve as an exciting origin tale, but it also adds detail and context to this period that will resonate through stories that follow.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, essentially, Gears 6 is still very much happening.
And it almost feels like whatever they end up doing here might be to set up what they want to do with 6, because I always got the feeling, and there had been talks before, like it was called Gears because Rod just wanted it to be called Gears, and they went right back to Gears of War and put in the last two friggin' words on there, and it was more bright and colorful and a little comedic, like quippy, which was way worse in 4 than it was in 5. And that was all led by Rod. Rod was like, it was his baby. He'd been there forever. But now he's working at Diablo. It definitely feels like they want to, it's a new leadership team. It's a new overall setup there. And they want to put their mark on it. Like, this is the story we want to tell. So.
And in general, what a genius move. I mean, like, I really, really like Gears 5. I think it's right up there with Gears 2 as my favorite in the series. Better than 3, better than 1. That being said, like, playing as Marcus and Dom again is just, it's not just nostalgic. Yeah, nostalgia is a big part of it, but it's just like, I really want to. But I also want to see the continuation of 6. So I'm hoping this game, which just seems to be more linear, more of your traditional Gears than like 5 was, I'm hoping they can get it out without as much work as, say, like Gears 5. I mean,
the work has probably been UE5.
Right?
So when you go to something else, depending on what you're doing, like if they're going back to 6 areas, like or the sequel trilogy, you got to remake all that again because they just are remaking all this for for this. So you never know. Like, asset creation at this fidelity is one of the biggest jobs. Like, it's just crazy amounts of work,
massively time consuming too.
Not
everyone has thousands of employees on this.
It's one of the benefits of like a From Software and a lot, especially Nintendo games. It's like From Software has unbelievably nice looking art design, but the actual fidelity of the textures is fine. Like, it's not crazy clean or crisp. You get right up to it, you can see pixels sometimes. You go to a Nintendo game, they up-res really well in an emulator, but like in their actual thing, they're just making it for 1080p, and it's super clean, so it can still look good, but it's not this. When you're going for this level of fidelity, it's a lot of work. It's a completely different pipeline. Like, you're probably making 8K textures half the time. Like, you are going all out, and it's a lot of work, and
this will carry over. A lot of the animations will carry over, the weapon mechanics, like a lot of it. Because I'm sure Gears 6, I'm expecting it to be like a decent departure. I don't know if they'll double down on the open world and make it even bigger, or they'll scale back and go back to something like this. But whatever they do, a lot of the work they do in E-Day will 100% carry over.
Yeah, it's like the Starfield stuff. All the work they do on Starfield will carry over to the engine for Elder Scrolls 6, and so that's why it shouldn't take as long. Like, who knows when it will be, but it won't be a decade almost type of thing.
100%. I really, like, I didn't catch it when I first watched it, which Jesse 100% did. I don't think Nick caught it either. But of course, throughout the trailer, they were using a really subdued version of Mad World.
And they cut it up enough, you don't get it at first unless you really know.
Yes.
So they didn't go ding 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 ding, like they went ding ding.
Yep.
And then it go, and then did the other ones like a little while later.
And I really, really like their approach to it. Because they didn't make it super blatantly obvious. They didn't just like say, hey, Mad World, go, go, go. Yeah, they fed on people's nostalgia, but they did it, I want to say, respectfully. You know what I mean?
Well, it is evoking that time frame. Like when you are going back and that is what you're going for. Like, you are going for that era of Gears of War. I think it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, no, makes full sense. And an entire game, basically, it looks like taking place in one day, the day the Locust, for those who don't know, E-Day was the day the Locust first appear. And they like don't want to say decimate because it's inaccurate. It's not enough. They do a lot more than decimate the entire population. The weapons are aged. For example, you don't have the chainsaw lancer. You have the retro lancer. You're not. No one's used to fighting the locust. They don't know what to do.
You
with
haven't
emergency
roided up
holes.
nearly as much. Marcus was taller than he was wider for once. So
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
it's and Nick's happy. It's linear focus, which is fine. I don't mind linear because Gears 5 was linear. You just use the open world to get to linear segments for the most part. But and it is the more horror focused. It is not survival horror because, as I always tried to say to Nick, survival horror means you're really weak and bad at killing anything, and most of the time there's no combat, and you're just focused on not dying, and you have to sometimes there's actual survival elements, and it's action horror, yes. Survival horror, no. Like Alan Wake 2 is action horror. It's not survival horror, like that type of I'm
like
not
Doom 3,
unbelievably
right?
powerful.
Action
Yeah.
horror for most of it. And then you get
Scary
superpower
action instead of
Yeah.
rolling through 700 enemies a level. I'm fine with that change if that's what they're going for, and that's what it sounds like.
Survival horror is like the Evil Within, you could say, right? The first one ish. Because you're running a lot in that game.
There are just a lot of segments in those types where you cannot fight, so you have to run. Gears has only ever had that really with the Berserker, but even then, you shoot the shit out of the Berserker with either hammered on or on the weak spots on the back. Like, it's not survival. So
yeah, like you rip that Berserker to pieces. So like that's not an issue. Yeah, there's a lot of potential with the story. I read a lot of the Gears books. The first one takes place before Marcus is thrown in prison, but not this far back.
Yeah, the only time we've seen this was Judgment, right?
Yeah. And technically, I think Tactics takes place soon after this, like a year or so after E-Day, which makes you think we might see, I forgot the character's name, but he could potentially appear in the game.
Oh, yeah. Jesus
Kate's
Christ.
father.
God damn it, I don't remember.
How do I not? I've played a fair bit of that game. I should know his name. But
Gabriel Diaz.
Either way, it's really exciting. Jesse, when do you think we're actually gonna
I did remember it.
play it?
2026.
26?
Yeah.
26, like
anything that didn't get a 2025, I would assume 2026 or later and be happily surprised if it's earlier.
Agreed.
I also think they are definitely in the business of, if you are not sure, don't say. Even if you are sure it's coming out that year, okay.
Yeah.
It's coming out that year. They don't want to be in the business of constant delays. When they have so much, they don't need to. You can just take your time, get it right, because it's very hard to guess an actual date far out. But like,
yes,
even Avowed, they talked about it, and we'll get to it later. It's in the polishing stage, but they're still waiting because there's other things there's always timing that comes down. Like, there are other games announced with dates, and you're like, oh, we'll spread out a little bit, or we've got our own stuff. We can finally start doing the Nintendo thing and figuring out our schedule, so it's not the exact same time all the time. This year, that's going to happen again, simply because stuff wasn't ready early. So they're fitting in 8 things in the second half of the year between the whole company. But yeah, I am very stoked for Gears, and take your time because there's so much more coming, which we have to get into.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
But hopefully not too long, because it has been a while for a Gears game. So.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be what, 7? That'll be about 7 years, 6 without any content because of Hivebusters. It's a long wait, but it's a COVID wait as well.
COVID wait, and I mean, new engine and them helping out. I'm assuming like half the people on their friggin'
they
team.
lost a lot of time, just like BGS did, to completely rebuilding an engine. And everyone's like, oh, but theirs was so good. It was like, yeah, but look at what it looks like now. Look at what they've been able to help with all the other Unreal Engine games, like Hellblade, and even helping with Halo. Like they did didn't they do the Warthog in Halo? I think they said something about. Oh no, that was Turn 10.
Playground.
Yeah, but like pretty much everybody worked on Halo in some way. But yeah, the friggin' getting shit like the Matrix demo to run on Series S was the Coalition. Like they are tech wizards over there, and we are seeing the fruits of that labor finally in their offshoot of Unreal Engine 5. I think will finally be the one that pushes this console and all of our PCs unbelievably hard.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if we see the game. If it's 26, it might release with the so-called rumored next-gen stuff. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or at least
it would be a hell of a launch game.
Yeah, it would. Holy crap. But speaking of them making improvements and fixing up Unreal Engine 5, the next game we want to talk about, State of Decay 3, is also on Unreal Engine 5. It also looked incredible of a trailer.
Well, it looks so good that a lot of people just don't believe that it was real. They think it was. So, because they did the hopping between where they go in and out of like gameplay camera angle, but then more cinematic camera angle, which is how they normally do it over there at Undead Labs. But again, I would not be shocked with all the work they're doing, especially the animation focus that they've had, because the animations in this are so much better.
They showcased the animations in this, I feel like, on purpose. Like, rather than keeping it like the gameplay angle, when like they shot that zombie's leg, they zoomed in to like look at the way this like snaps and breaks. That's new. You know?
Yeah, and I quickly just climbing up on stuff just looks better, because it was State of Decay was an Xbox Live arcade game, and then State of Decay 2 did not look very good at launch. It didn't look bad, like it wasn't hideous. Yeah, but then they had a huge.
It was pretty janky. And,
the way people look at it now was after their huge graphical update, where they made it look way better than it did at launch, especially the color and the lighting and stuff. And the jump from even that to this is so big that I do think people are having a very hard time thinking that the game will look anything like it. But even based on what they've shown with Unreal Engine 5 at Xbox, I do not struggle.
I didn't catch this when I first saw the trailer, and apparently another 7 times, but it doesn't even say in-engine in this trailer. It just says in-game footage and cinematics. That's all it says.
Yeah.
None of this is like the so-called fake CGI, blah, blah, blah. This is cinematics and in-game.
But then, like, every reaction and thing I was watching was like, wow, this is a... Well, I had those fake gameplay segments. Like, no, the whole thing was supposed to be gameplay. They're just using cinematic cameras to show it off. That's what they've done. Like it is their game with a camera in it, like a cameraman walking around while the game's being played.
Yep. People are so... I don't know if they're cynical. I don't know if they're just used to it, or they're just so used to getting just vertical slices in the past, especially, right? That they're like, oh, it's not real. It's just all fake, right? But I mean, dude, after a game like Hellblade 2 is released and we see the sheer visual fidelity this engine can do, even though I'm not like I don't think Unreal Engine 5 is a silver bullet, but clearly
Xbox
visually,
says Unreal Engine 5. What the work that Ninja Theory, the Coalition, and others have done with it is the thing that we were pitched in their initial demos.
Exactly. And like no one, I don't know how anyone's still doubting the visuals in Unreal Engine 5. I mean, we've seen even the games that don't do that well, play that well, like Lords of the Fallen, look fantastic.
Or one of the other ones in this show, Expedition 33, we'll get into later, like that's Unreal Engine 5, and it looks insane, and it's only 30 people. Like, you can do some crazy shit with this engine now that it's finally catching up by being like version 5.4, I think, is the current one. Like, it took them many iterations to get it looking like they had promised, but it does. Like, you can even see back in the Gears trailer, like the rocks at the end of that are just incredibly good looking. Like, that's like that's the new Unreal Engine 5 thing, is when you look at the ground and it looks like ground. It doesn't look like video game ground.
Exactly.
The way they've been able to do that with nanite and the mesh and the way the lighting hits it and everything, and it doesn't pop ever. It just looks like ground no matter how much the camera's moving. That is the Unreal Engine 5 thing to me, like where Unreal Engine 3 were the grays and the browns, and Unreal Engine 4 was it the pop-in and the stutter.
Yep. God, so much stutter. I feel like people need to recontextualize this trailer. A lot of people. Because people going in thinking this is just CGI. No, it's not. That's not. In fact, it's not even an engine. This is how the game will look. At 30 FPS, of course, but this is how the game will look.
No matter what you think about Phil, I always felt there was a reason that when we asked him what his most anticipated game was, he said this one immediately. Yeah. And it's because like the concept and the gameplay was always so good, and as Nick wanted, it's not a job into anymore if you don't want it to be. You can make the grindy part of it way less intrusive. You don't have to constantly go out and get supplies and food all the time. You just do it occasionally, and you can focus on the exploration and the combat because you have sliders for every difficulty. Like combat, like how many plague hearts are around, like you get to customize it, and I imagine a lot of that stuff probably should carry over. You never know. But if it does, it is
You mean
not
from
the
Decay 2, right?
yeah. If that stuff carries over from 2 into 3, letting you customize it. But also this does look way bigger, as far as maybe being the shared open world thing they always wanted to have, where it's like this one big zombie apocalypse that a ton of people go into, kind of like Destiny style. Not a full MMO, because that would be very expensive and a real pain in the ass, but being more, and I think they talked about in their blog post, working with Obsidian. Yeah, you probably have it.
I do have it up, but Obsidian too, really.
Yeah, I believe it was working with Obsidian to get some of the co-op stuff working, maybe from Grounded experience. I'm not sure.
With Obsidian Entertainment on the shared world feature, enabling a more flexible online co-op. And so Grounded, this is the part that made me interested, is Grounded released with Undead Labs shared save technology. That's the interesting part. And then now Decay is going to build on top of that to deliver a truly open co-op world owned by multiple players.
Yeah. So you can have your friend's world. So it doesn't have to be this big thing you matchmake into. It can be a shared thing, like a dedicated server you share with your friends, almost like what Pal World just announced for freaking Xbox, where you guys can go in, which is what they always wanted, because before it was tethered to you, the person hosting.
The tethering was pretty bad. And
you could go like 100 feet away from each other, and that was about it. And this one, they are very far.
They talk about the trailer too here, where they say it's all in-game assets, all rendered from the game, and it's a depiction of a typical scene you would encounter in 4-player co-op session. We wanted to give you a representative feel of what the game would be like, but also tell a story. And honestly, Jesse, I feel like their games are starting to look maybe too good, to the point that even though they're just showing gameplay, people don't believe it.
No,
it happened to Fable last year. Probably happened again.
Well, because it's as an industry, it's always been the make a fake vertical slice that aspires to be what you want to make, and outside of very specific situations like The Last of Us or Uncharted or some other really big Gears of War, like outside of those where they had the budget to do it and the crunch required, Microsoft is now in a position where, like Booty had talked about with other games, like they were ready to show a while ago. The team just wanted to take their time. Like they are very much in that we have so much, we can't fit it all into one show, so you can take your time. Like, why wasn't Clockwork Revolution there? Well, maybe it's coming out sooner. And then instead of them taking 5 months to put together some big gameplay demo, they can do it slowly while they're still working on everything. Like that was always something I thought of, because they now are in a position where you shouldn't have to have crunch culture to get any of this done. It should be, there's just so much. Okay, we're going to go you, and you this year. Everyone else, just take your time. Don't worry about it. Like, you'll be next time, or you'll be Game Awards, or you'll be Gamescom. Like, they have so many different things.
You know, Jesse, I mean, I kind of feel like, and we'll get to this later, but like Avowed's first showing, right? Both the trailer and the extended gameplay look earlier this year. It was clearly early. But I feel like other studios, especially say Sony studios, would never do that. They'd make sure that their early gameplay is super like vertical slicey and as polished as possible. While Avowed showing there, it kind of looked like, just show the game, show what you have.
It was the Avowed one in the direct was just, we're going to open the dev environment and we're going to play you animations and show you stuff, because it's way easier than us taking a ton of time, because we're going to already be doing that for E3.
Because it was almost like seeing the game in early access in a way, right? But again, we're
not used to it. We are not used to seeing what games look like, but without them being polished to a sheen. Also, I got a note from John about the PayPal thing. Should be back up. They just wanted him to verify he is who he says he is. So this Friday, I'm not doing shit on Wednesday. I'm taking the goddamn day off, because this Friday, 4 a.m. British Standard Time and 9 a.m. or what the hell, 4 a.m. Eastern Daylight Savings, 9 a.m. British Daylight Time, or GMT they call it. I forget. They change. But we'll be starting the XboxEra first ever spring subathon to try and pay not only for John's trip to LA, that was very, very fruitful in the behind the scenes and coverage stuff. Might have gotten someone new for the 360 book, and it's to pay for our trip for all of us, myself, John, Nick, Aarsal, Pre-Drag, all of us going to Gamescom to hang out together to cover shit in Germany in August. So that'll be this Friday. There's a PayPal link in the description below if you ever want to donate.
Actually, we're going to need to put that back on.
Yeah, I think I took it out because it wasn't working. I didn't want people to keep clicking on it. If you go to xboxera.com, it says donate right at the top. You can click that. I will have on the day, I'll have some stretch goals as we go. And I'll start and do some really good giveaways if we hit those stretch goals. But those giveaways will be on the Discord, discord.gg/XboxEra. So, yeah, exciting.
Yeah, really, really exciting.
I've never left the country before, so it's going to be weird.
That's insane to me.
I've driven 30 hours before, and I didn't leave the coast of this country, much like yours. It's very big.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's a big continent.
God.
Replace didn't show JB 1521, but a lot of people played it for previews. So you're going to get previews of Replaced, which is, as far as Thunderful's report, set to come out in the second half of this year.
Okay, nice. Actually releasing, huh?
Yeah, that was a while ago. I feel like their financial report was like aiming for release second half 2024.
Throughout this week, we'll get more and more gameplay impressions.
Yeah. They're letting people get home and stuff too, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So keep an eye on our channel. We should get a few either videos or articles out from the website.
Hopefully.
Speaking of the website, for anyone interested in State of Decay 3, I highly recommend you read through this Xbox Wire post because it goes through a lot of things.
Xbox Wire putting us all to shame with their exclusives.
Yeah, right? Come on. They'll have more to share in a later date around co-op, customizations, and other fun features, but they can't get into detail just yet. As it stands, State of Decay 3 is primed to be the tip of Undead Labs' creative spear, serving as a vehicle for their continued evolution, and we can't wait to see more.
Just the tip.
This off with. Yeah, just the tip. All right, as we head into our next one, which is very exciting, a real quick request for everyone watching. If you're watching the video and you haven't clicked that little thumbs up button, please do so. It really helps discoverability and, in general, our entire channel. Yeah.
Yes.
What's up?
Keep an eye on their site later in the month for a review of Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree.
Yes! Oh, nice. Good stuff. Okay.
Don't have it yet, but I feel like I will be getting it.
Okay. I was about to say, because otherwise I feel like you'd be like, all right, we're done, guys. See you next time.
I'm not taking Wednesday off if I do.
Next up we want to talk about is the surprise game, I want to say. South of Midnight, which, of course, we saw revealed last year with CGI. It wasn't CGI, it was in-engine. And this year, we get a trailer, which alone surprised me. But then it moved straight into full-on proper gameplay, which I don't think any of us saw coming, Jesse.
It was very nice. And the gameplay itself looking very different from We Happy Few was a just straight-up first-person platformer action game. This being a full-on Devil May Cry light magic focus. I know a lot of people started yelling Kina because it had the cleansing mechanic when you killed something.
And the plants coming back.
Yeah. But as someone who played Kina, this looked a lot better overall, I would say. Let me get you off 4K.
Also, it had, of course, anyone watching would immediately recognize that, hey, something feels or looks kind of off. It's because the character animations were done on 2s, which I don't actually know what that means necessarily. I just read a few things about it. While the world itself looks like it was at 60. It's that, I guess in layman's terms, that Spider-Verse effect of the characters feeling a little, how do I say, like an old cartoon almost, in a way. But this is obviously made by Compulsion Games, whose last game was We Happy Few, which was okay, though I've heard the DLCs got significantly better than the base games. But with South of Midnight, they started the game off showing a cutscene, and it was all in-game, which is really cool, because it looked, I've seen the trailer a few times, especially in 4K, and it straight up looked like a painting at times, especially near the end with the trees. And I think Two-Toed Tom, is that his name?
Yes.
Let me see. Yeah,
and then the song was about Two-Toed Tom. It was
yeah. Tom is the only mythical creature in the game who is not a human being before transforming. There's quite a bit of information as well in the Xbox Wire. But what did you think of? We got a date, right? 2025.
We got a year.
How far along the game is? A year, sorry. That's enough for a date for me. How did you feel how far along the game was? Like, did you feel like this is a good showing for it?
Oh yeah, I mean, it looks awesome. They have talked about for people, because there are people who get a headache from animation on the 2s in gaming like this when when the character is on the 2s or even 3s if it's 60 FPS and you're only getting like every third frame. But they're like, we'll look into an accessibility setting that removes that. So if you're worried for that, but yeah, no, the actual gameplay looked real good. It's a typical lock-on action RPG feel where you got your cooldowns on left bumper, left trigger, right trigger. So I'm curious what the other ones do. There's probably a jump. Y is your unravel. X is probably your main attack. A jump. B a dodge. Pretty standard stuff. Curious what right bumper would be. Yeah, no, it looks friggin' gorgeous. The music was incredible. I'm having a double jump and then your little friggin' butterfly magic shit to hover and fly around with. Movement looked really good. Story very interesting. Very intriguing setting.
You do not get this setting. Ever. Like, they explicitly define the game as wide linear, which is music to my ears because that's possibly my favorite type of devil design.
Yeah, where it's more the hub and it's not the it is just an open world and you have to go around because that's like the Ubisoft template people lose their minds on. It's like I like the Ubisoft version of that. I don't like a lot of other people's because Ubisoft has enough employees to make those worlds huge and full of content. And Compulsion was like 6 people until 5 years ago. I highly doubt they're going to have the 4,000 plus people working on it like Outlaws does. And that's a conservative number for Ubisoft. It's probably more on that one in Assassin's Creed. But looks incredible. Sounds incredible. Like this is such a jump from We Happy Few, which I really liked. Like I really enjoyed.
Insane jump.
We Happy Few. It was, you could see we're 5 people part at the beginning, and then as they grew and they got the DLCs out, like I don't even think they're that many people now. But how good this looks and having that focus of not being this enormous thing, just being something big. Bigger than we did, but not over the top huge I am all for it because this looks really good looking.
And I'm guessing
really fun.
The texture quality isn't super high fidelity, right?
Because very stylized,
things, which of course helps them and helps the file size of the game. They explicitly mentioned that there's multiple regions, each has its own biome, all of which are reflections of South's wildly varied landscapes. But it's kind of funny. They mentioned that they went to a Mississippi ghost town. That itself was infested with alligators as they were like researching the game and how to obviously do the visuals. They're putting a lot of effort and a lot of work into this. I think this is going to be a game that even if it doesn't play like super unique, it will stick in people's minds. I mean, that trailer is already stuck in my mind with that music and that design. Really exciting stuff.
Oh, hey, it's John in chat. He just walked in his front door. Sorry.
Hey, John.
PayPal's back up. So, I was going to take Wednesday off from work. Now I probably won't if Elden Ring shows up. But, yeah. Exciting. We'll be going all day Friday for the first ever XboxEra subathon. If you want to be a part of any of the giveaways we do during it, go to discord.gg/XboxEra. And I will be holding them there in a special subathon thread.
Yeah, John, I hope you're feeling better, man. A week for 30 hours, that's rough.
Wonder how many people he got sick. He's going to be called a bioterrorist now. I know Jed says he has the flu.
Yeah, every time I go to any kind of con or
I'm
event,
wearing a mask the entire time at Gamescom.
It's smart.
Yeah.
Good idea. And yeah, we had a great showcase. John, missed you, of course, but I hope you had a great time in the audience with everyone else feeling the excitement.
I was very happy going back through and watching the showcase and being like, okay, good. My hour, even running at 3K bitrate, AV1 is magic. So it was a good looking 1080p stream that didn't have a ton of technical errors. I felt really bad for Giant Bomb because they're sharing a set with GameSpot. And so when they went to do the co-stream, the audio just didn't work for the first 20 minutes for the stream. For the people watching the actual stream part, like them talking worked.
Yeah.
That's
rough.
Their co-stream was pretty good too. It was Dan, Jeff Grubb, Tamor Hussein, and Lucy. It was a solid one.
You know who's I really liked? Kind of Funnies.
Yep, that was probably the best one for me for watching them. There were some where it was very obvious where people just don't follow the platform and seem shocked that Xbox had games and thought Xbox and Game Pass were dead. I was doom scrolling. I was doom scrolling a few of the shittier places on the internet because I couldn't help myself because it's fun. And I'm seeing people who were convinced that them not saying exclusive world premiere, that it meant that the game was going everywhere. That meant every game, South of Midnight, everything's going everywhere because they didn't say exclusive. And it's like, no, there was only the one that we'll get into in a bit. Though I don't know if I put a thing directly for it, so you can do it whenever you want. Because I just grabbed stuff from the Xbox Wire, but Bethesda had their own wire. Oh, I added at the bottom. Okay, that's right. I did find Bethesda stuff.
The Doom and the Yep.
Okay.
Those are added in. Okay, next up on the docket is kind of subdued, I want to say, because Sarah Bond announced this in like a minute and we moved on. But essentially, there's 3 new SKUs for consoles to be sold later this year. We have, I think, was it a 2 terabyte?
2 terabyte. So it's a Series X Galaxy Black. It is a, people are pissed that it's $600, but it is because it's a limited edition. It's not just like a normal one. Here, I'll get a picture of it up. So yeah, we've got the 1 terabyte.
A little starry.
Yeah. 1 terabyte robot white Series X digital, which is $50 less than normal MSRP, $450. The white 1 terabyte Series S, because some people are like, that's just the Series S. It's like, no, it's twice the storage, $350, just like the black version is. And then the Series X 2 terabyte SSD Galaxy Black, where it might be kind of hard to see exactly, but it's got these little flecks of color in it, and people who saw it in person said it looks very nice. It's like a bunch of little stars.
It looks really nice.
And the controller's got it on the D-pad. But that is $600, as it is a limited edition and twice the storage. So that was the new hardware for now. We'll get into other hardware teases at the end of the show.
Yep. People, I think, underestimate how expensive NVMe SSDs still are. They are still pretty expensive.
The form factor and the thing with the Xbox ones, especially for the plug and play capability, which would be extremely important for the thing that got mentioned later in the show. That plug and play is everything. So if you don't have it, you have to completely shut the system down, full power down to be able to change a drive and have it be read. So that's why theirs are more expensive. Plug and play is not cheap. The CF Express, I think, is the name of the plug.
Yeah, that makes sense. Either way, more options for hardware. And in general, I feel like a good time. We actually, now that I think about it, we didn't get a limited or a collector's edition for Call of Duty. Maybe they just couldn't get it in time, because stuff like that takes years of planning in advance, guys. It's not like a few months worth of work.
And we still get it. It is curious because, like, what is the Game Pass effect? Like, they're going to have it boxed and they're going to they're going to have it marketed with it. They're already 100%. Doing other things. So if you just box Call of Duty with the new things you already got, that's probably like all your budget for that type of promotion.
Yep.
Because Call of Duty is spending a lot of money other places already.
In general, like in a post Game Pass world, an Xbox that comes bundled with a game that's on Game Pass was never really a big appeal for me. You know, it's like, hey, come at Sea of Thieves, comes with Forza Horizon. It's like, yeah, but I already have access to those. I don't need to pay extra to get them.
Especially when if it's the multiplayer focus, like with Call of Duty, and so you just have to get at least Game Pass Core anyways.
Exactly. Yeah, no. We'll see. I mean, they still do have a limited edition one coming out. They have the digital one if you want to save a few bucks.
Yeah, one of the things people kept saying was, well, you get it on the regular Game Pass, but if you want to play multiplayer, you have to they're making it so you have to get Ultimate. And it's like, well, that's every game that's on Game Pass that has multiplayer. You don't get the multiplayer unless you're on Ultimate. But it's also saying, well, I'll just go buy it on PlayStation. Okay, then you're getting PlayStation Plus Essentials at least. Like you've got to still spend more no matter where you are. If you're on PC, you get it on Game Pass through the Windows Store, not Battle.net, the Windows Store. And you don't have to pay extra. Like that would be the one place you could say you don't have to pay extra, but that's the same. You don't have to pay extra on Steam, on Steam or Battle.net either. So
technically, if all you're playing is of course Warzone, then you don't need to get the extra Game Pass either, right? I'm sorry, you don't need to get the
online play.
Or yes, whatever. Anyways, but yeah, more choices for hardware. I know people balked at the prices a little bit. The whole point of MSRP is that it's never the sale price. Right?
Yep.
So when something shows up as 350 or 450, yeah, that's gonna be 400 and 300 when the sales come rolling
Yeah,
around.
but this is the price
Kinda
they
how it
want it at
works.
normally because they don't want to lose money on hardware.
Yep, exactly.
Like Sony talked
I
about
do
in
hope,
their financials, they're like, we've been doing a ton of sales
yeah,
and it costs us a lot of money, so we're going to stop focusing on that.
yeah, their sales have been on for a while. Like, they're 100% losing a fair
And
bit of money
Series X
there.
is on sale right now. You can find it 450 or even 400 depending on the place and the time.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Although I think the digital one will be 400 at a lot of places relatively commonly after it releases.
Especially if
Most
they're
likely.
when they
But
come
either
out,
way,
if it's around Black Friday.
yes, exactly. Which it probably will be. I mean, there's not too much many months left in the day. It probably comes like September or October.
hmm
But okay. Next up is another, honestly, really
Maybe
big
game of the show.
surprise, I want to say. Straight up, maybe game of the show,
It's
which
very
is
funny.
Perfect Dark.
Yeah. After everything
And
we heard, being potentially game of the show
yeah,
is a funny roundabout way for this one to go. I joked it was because they start with the plane, and I just joked it was Flight Sim 2024 because it had said Microsoft Studios, and then I was like, oh shit, it is
yep.
Joanna Dark
And
with
for
her
those who
woke chin, as people are now yelling online.
God, I swear, some people, those who play Perfect Dark, I haven't really. Apparently, Carrington was a big like, oh
I've
damn, this is Perfect Dark,
I thought he was your boss in the first one.
right?
I haven't played it in forever. I might be wrong. Someone in chat can let us know. But yeah, so the moment Carrington's name got said before Datadyne popped up,
Yeah,
a lot of people were like, Perfect Dark?
yeah,
Especially when they said
yep,
agent.
yep.
But yeah, like,
Yes,
and,
yeah,
and
that was it for me. I'm like, oh yeah,
yeah,
this is Perfect Dark.
yeah, and it is funny and they show the face. It's a new face. It's a human face instead of being an anime face
Yes,
because they're going for a more realistic
yes,
look, especially because it's with Crystal Dynamics working on something. They're really good at doing pretty realistic looking faces with a little slight stylization to them.
yeah,
And it looks a lot like the actress or the face model they're using for this game, just with a very different hairstyle. But yeah, going through
yep.
ImSim elements, the immersive sim stuff with taking voice prints and getting people to move around by hacking stuff and
Very Deus Ex, right?
yeah, very Deus Ex, very bright, colorful Deus Ex, but still like not
Yeah.
super happy.
Oh yeah.
From this feels a lot like there was a sequel in the works that was focused on movement and a lot of the gameplay type stuff we saw. It feels like they have pulled from that. A lot of parkour, a lot of mirrors, edgier to it.
Yeah.
No big signs on, like, obviously the wall that you can jump off of for wall running essentially is all beat up. Not bright yellow, no big paint on it. The ledge you can jump onto, it kind of feels like you can do that to almost any ledge.
Yeah. Which you
Very
probably can. I mean, if the parkour gameplay is the way it looks like it is, you can.
The pipe
go
was
pretty
yellow.
crazy.
That made it very obvious. But
Yes. The wall was kind of yellowish too. So
yeah, looked great. Was a long gameplay trailer. It had a cinematic to begin and end with, but other than that, it was all fake gameplay, as people kept saying while I was watching various. Because it's not fake. It's
edited,
really rehearsed to try and look as good as possible, but it's not. It should not be fake. Really good fruit physics with the oranges, so people can be happy. The smoke from the fire extinguisher and blocking stuff.
People through walls, right? Based off scanning, things like that.
Very dynamic. Nick was extremely happy when it looked like John Wick at the very end, when she wraps her leg around the guy after countering him. There seems to be a heavy melee counter focus on things mixed with gun shooting and gadgets. Only saw the one gun, which seemed to vary between stun and kill. She just swapped a kill at one point and said, screw it.
Yeah, I'm just like, oh, okay, so we're going for a non-lethal playthrough, and then just shoot someone else like 4 times in the chest. I'm like, okay, never mind.
Yeah, immediately pings the guy in the head as he then goes back through the destructible Jesus Christ, can't think of the word, and falls backwards, and then she runs and jumps. So it's like, it'll be curious to see exactly how that looks and feels when you're the one doing it and not somebody who's been rehearsing on this playthrough for a month to get it to look as good as possible. But yeah, it is very funny.
Exactly.
Going from this is in rough shape, which can mean almost anything in game dev, then Nick saying he had heard the gameplay's not in rough shape, but the figuring out exactly what the story was going to be was more what people might be talking about. And at the end,
which and game development,
Well, just at the end, we see they go back to some of that weird alien shit that from the first game, which was very interesting to see.
'Cause that's all I really know about Perfect Dark is that it's like, yeah, it's James Bond, but also with aliens. So I'm curious how much they embrace of that. But I remember I was watching one of the reactions. I think it might have been Min Max, and it was a good reaction overall.
Mhm.
But as the game starts being shown, one of the reactors is like, "This game exists." I literally wrote a piece saying that like it's gonna be canceled or it doesn't exist anymore. I'm like, yeah, like why are people so obsessed with like games don't exist anymore or it's in a really bad shape based on random rumors and things we've heard? Like
Because
just
it gets
let
you
the games come out.
engagement most of the time. Like that is the
100%.
insider game. There are people that even work in the industry, just actually in gaming, not gaming coverage, who for some reason
Mhm.
just love the feeling of dishing inside gossip. I don't know why they don't. I don't
Yeah.
think there's anything to
Yeah.
gain. Like you
Lots
took
to lose, that's for sure.
yeah, like you look at somebody like Shinobi, who's been on Resetera, has a popular Twitter thing. Like he does so much
Mhm.
news posting, and I'm always curious why. Like it's fine, it's cool. I've found a lot of cool stuff from him reposting. I'm curious what it is
Yeah.
because there's no way Twitter's paying well. I don't care if you get like 300,000 views. I think 5 million can get you like a couple bucks. Maybe it is enough where it's worth it. Maybe just loving doing it, but like you got a job
Maybe just
in the
habits, just
industry.
doing it for so
Yeah.
long. Like,
I don't know.
yeah.
I'm always curious,
I've
and then like Nick says it outright. He loves the clout. He loves feeling good about this
yeah,
stuff.
he's
and
upfront with it at least.
yeah, but like Midori, why was she doing it? Like I'm always really curious about that because I don't see any actual benefit. Like Nick was able to take the rumor mill as a base to build this podcast up that we had
Yes. Yeah.
that became the site. We're not rumor mill focused at all anymore. Like we work with too
Yep.
many PR companies where it's like, no, we're not going to piss them off. Sorry, Nick. Like we're just not going to do that. But
The voice actress for Perfect Dark, for Joanna Dark, it sounded familiar. Her name is Alex Wilton Regan. Like I was kind of looked her up to see what she's done. She was a female inquisitor in Dragon Age Inquisition,
oh,
which
okay.
I feel like
Yeah.
very people know, and someone called Aya in Origins. Is that his wife? No, right?
I don't know. I
Maybe.
forget.
Maybe.
It's
It's been a
been
while
so
since I played
long since I
Origins.
played.
Yeah. Yeah. Either way, there's also an Xbox. They did show gameplay, but even then, I wouldn't put money on it. But 26 would be my guess.
I would
when
hope
this game
so.
releases.
2026 would be really good. Might have had a little hiccup. I accidentally hit friggin' stop streaming and immediately hit start.
Yeah,
Just
no
trying to
worries.
click something else. But yeah, this one, no year, nothing given. I do think they are very much in that mindset where if you just don't know, it's fine.
Yep.
Don't stress it. Once you know, you should know. And outside of some crazy thing
Yes,
happening,
exactly.
please,
And
make
it felt like
sure.
this gameplay was like, hey, listen, yes, we're still alive. Yes, the game exists. Now shut up, right? Like, let us work on the damn game in peace. Here's some gameplay, which is, of course, from a heavily rehearsed and edited a fair bit vertical slice. I mean, I still think it looked rough and early at
Mhm.
times, which kind of showed me, yeah, this is clearly still
It
their
was one of the
gameplay that
things.
they're
There were
working on.
things you see. This is just a game being played for the most part. It's
Exactly.
not something that's been highly edited or faked. Like there still might be stuff like, oh, don't look in that direction. It doesn't actually look right or
Yeah.
work. Like if you go off the path, the game just breaks type of thing because we
Yes.
have this section ready and set out for you to do. So it's not scripted, but it's highly rehearsed. Like they are
Yes.
set up to show off this stuff here, and it looks good or it looks close
Like
to
the
what they want everything
Halo
to be.
Infinite demo in 2020 even, I think, right? Where it was heavily rehearsed. You had the brute just throwing the grunt constantly for the shot. That the game still looked a lot of fun.
I've still never shot a grunt in the air. I've only had it
Neither
happen to
did
me. I've only had it happen to me like 4 times, and every time I'm like, oh, he landed. God damn it.
I'm waiting to try to get that achievement. I've never freaking hit the damn thing. But yeah, that's Perfect Dark. Of course, one of the main trailers from the show. And finally, both Perfect Dark and State of Decay 3 now have more footage we can use for our hype trailers, for anything related to these games. Which
Yeah, it was a very, very long time where we were just using the same couple of key arts and the same footage. So we can finally move past that.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. Next is a game which I'm slowly getting more and more excited about as it approaches release, which is, of course, Obsidian's Avowed. Now, Avowed has had a couple things. It's had the trailer, of course, which showed a bit of the story premise. It's had an Xbox Wire article, which goes through a little bit of the companions, Specifically, they mentioned there are 4 companions in the game. Again, keep in mind, Avowed isn't Skyrim.
Yeah.
It's very much Outer Worlds in scale, maybe a little bigger, I feel like. But it's Pillars of Eternity set in a different perspective almost, in a way, right? But more importantly for Avowed, because we've all seen the trailer, they had yesterday another deep dive look through the Xbox, I was about to say XboxEra, through the official Xbox podcast. And in that deep dive look, I think they had game director Kerry Patel was there, who I just realized earlier today was the lead writer for Perils at Gorgon in the Outer Worlds DLC, which apparently is a fantastic DLC.
Yeah.
But Kerry Patel was there for the podcast. She dived a little deeper into it, a lot more story details, a lot more character details, and they showed roughly 8 or so, I want to say, minutes of gameplay.
Only in 1080p, sadly.
Yeah, only. That being said, I originally watched it on my phone at like a Walmart, and it looked good, but like, yeah, I know. I was rushing home. But then I watched it again last night on like a proper 4K TV, but still, and it looked good, even at 1080.
It's still an Unreal Engine 5 game, so its base should be pretty nice looking. No date given, though. There was one accidentally left in a blog post about the game. That was quickly scrubbed. It was set in November, but I don't think there's nothing finalized. So just take that as you will. It might be what they were aiming for, what they are aiming for. We don't know.
Assassin's Creed 2 is releasing now.
Yeah, it was like 3 days off or something.
No, it's the early access date for AC2.
Oh, early access, yeah. So that's always a thing that companies are looking at. It's like, well, we've got our idea of what we want, but it's the busy time of year, so we really got to see, because I mentioned they don't want to be right on top of anything similar if there's anything like that coming out. So it's I know a lot of people's complaints were just not enough hard dates, and I'm like, I think that's going to be gaming moving forward, because it's delayed 4 times was always the thing we were used to.
What does Xbox gain by giving a hard date 4 or 5 months in advance? Literally, tangibly, what do they gain? Right? And the answer is not much.
Yeah, they only did it with things that are more established. Like Flight Sim 2024 is a massive update. It's a new game, but it's like it's using the Flight Sim tech. Like,
so that's
and
like
then
the one
building
game
on it.
Can't get delayed out of 24. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it would it would have to be renamed.
Literally. So that game has to release this year. So it makes sense to give a date.
Yeah.
But I mean, otherwise, the days of pre-ordering, especially for Game Pass games, is essentially over. Right? No one really does it. No one really needs to do it anymore. The days of marketing of a game 6, 7, 8 months in advance are over. You now market before the game releases and after the game releases. Because when the game's released, that's when people with Game Pass are like, hey, I saw this. I can play it now. Let me play it. Like, the landscape has changed a fair bit, and I don't think people have realized that, even though they really should have.
Especially with marketing beats, where marketing is so expensive, people have moved on to being closer to launch, and at launch is when we go nuts, not way before, unless it's literally Call of Duty, and that's the one they go nuts before, because it makes enough money to be worth it.
Yeah, exactly. But okay, so Avowed of the deep dive, and there were a couple pretty cool things shown here. We had a news piece on the site as well that goes over it, but I feel like right away, one of the first things shown is that it's a nighttime shot, and it's the first time we've seen a nighttime shot in gameplay. And Kerry Patel confirmed here, dynamic time of day is in the game, which means, you know what I think of when I hear that? The first thing I think of is trolls are gonna go get shots at high noon and be like, "There's no shadows. There's no shadows. Look, it's such a flat looking game." But no, that's actually a pretty big deal, I want to say, because it's a fair bit easier doing just baked in lighting.
Yeah.
And of course, the other big, massive, really reveal during the deep dive podcast was that you can play the game in third person, something we did not know before this. All the footage was first person, or we assumed was cinematics.
Yeah, even in this, most of the footage is first person. They just had the one quick clip of them around the campfire, because you get your campfire, you can hang out and talk with your companions and chitty chat with them and flirt. And that was just walking around a little bit in third person. That's all first person.
Yep. Someone in chat mentioned Dragon Age. I think they're literally about to start showing the gameplay now.
Yeah, 20 minutes of it. So
yeah.
God,
but anyways, maybe it'll join our show near the end of it. But
it'll join our 7-hour show near the end of it.
Yeah, no, I will pick up the pace. Um, yeah, and also they showcased a little bit more detail into the class system, explicitly. Rather than giving you like hard classes you need to dive into, they've instead divided the skill tree into almost play styles, I want to say, where you have fighter, which is probably more of your warrior play style. You have ranger, which includes like rogue and stealth skills. Wizard, of course, magic users. Godlike, which we'll get to. That's the race, or not necessarily the race, but that's like your character is a godlike, for reference. And
Mhm.
then a companions, which they didn't scroll over, but I'm assuming just either gives your companions moves that you can proc or something. I'm not sure
It'll probably be
exactly.
buffs for what your companion, because you can always have 2 companions out of the 4 with you. So it'll probably be
Yeah,
like what they can do, or individual trees for each of those companions, I would guess.
yeah, that would make sense.
And short, because none of the
Um,
trees. So outside of wizard, fighter and rangers trees were seemingly more basic. But I am curious. I think
yeah,
from the wizard thing, like he had more books. So I'm curious if they had
yeah,
upgraded the wizard more than they had,
that's a
because
good point.
fighter just had the 4 tiers,
Yeah,
which would be weird if you can only
so
get to
did
level
ranger, I
15.
think.
Yeah,
Might
and
have had
then
maybe one more tier.
yeah, no ranger. They both just showed to level 15, but then
Okay,
all of
yeah,
them showed to level 15. So I'm curious how many levels are in the game as well. But wizard
yeah.
had way more overall.
To be fair, I mean, there's more you can do with magic, and probably more pick and choose, right? If you want
Hmm.
to go ice, fire, whatever. Especially if they dive deep into like their own systems, like soul magic and things like that.
Yeah, and everything like the
Um,
upgrading on items and abilities, it all has like a rule of multiple pips. So you get 3
yeah,
things, 3 levels for each. So yeah, there's a lot.
yes, yes. You can respec easily, which is always nice to see. They said it has a monetary cost. I mean, I feel like that's just there to make it feel like you can't just spam it constantly. Really is how it usually works.
Hmm.
Uh, but you can respec easily. You can only upgrade your weapons at camp. But one thing they explicitly showed, which I think was one of the major complaints from the first showing, was hit registration
Yeah,
when you hit enemies.
and it is
And
funny
this
because
initial, yeah,
yeah, with the hit registration, when they start
yes,
off and there's almost none because they've got a really weak weapon that can't actually hurt
yep,
people. And I like that mechanic where it's like, oh, our weapon is not strong enough for this area by default. So it takes
yes,
way more hits and it doesn't impact people because there's a whole stun system. And every melee weapon has a amount of stun that it does to
yep,
someone when you hit them, which then you get to a nice big attack once they're stunned. So I remember I was watching some people watch this and like, man, there's like that weapon's not doing shit. And then she explained, and they're like, oh, that is very cool because normally it's just I swing through you and it doesn't do anything.
yes,
What's going on?
yes,
Instead, this is literally I can't chop you, you little
yep.
shit.
I already saw some responses from people that were like, who clearly only watched the first 30 or 40 seconds, like, oh, the combat still looks so clunky. But then immediately, this is on Reddit, of course. Immediately, all the replies are like, are you like, can you watch the rest? Do you have it muted while the combat's happening? They explicitly
Mm-hmm.
talk about how this is on design, this is on purpose. And one
Mm-hmm.
thing Carrie mentioned, which was so cool to me, is they want to make it more obvious that you are under leveled or you need to
Mm-hmm.
go back and buff yourself up or something if you hit an area. I feel like some games do not make it that obvious, or like a Souls game is you'll enter an area where you're under leveled, you'll hit someone, and like a tenth of their HP bar will go down, and you're like, okay, yeah, clearly I'm not meant to be here. But yeah, in the gameplay they show her whacking the character whacking away at Mushroom, not doing much, upgrading the sword, and then like ripping them to pieces. Essentially, that was nice to see. Um, it's definitely worth watching. They showcase some magic, and man, yeah, the melee combat might not look the greatest because no first person melee combat looks that good, but the magic looked fantastic.
Mm.
Holy crap!
Yeah, so much of
Just
it's going to come down
so
to how does it feel to play, really, which you don't know until you're actually doing it. So,
exactly, yeah, 100%.
I cannot wait. That's for a show that had like 25 things I really want to play.
Yeah,
It was closer to
yeah.
the top, if not near it.
My like number one ideal class fantasy ever has always been like the mage that fights in the front line, like a battle mage
Hmm.
essentially. And, like she specifically said the words battle mage when talking about how you can like switch between classes. And I'm like, yes, hell yeah. It's one of the reasons why I loved Immortals of Avium so much. And I fully got that, and I fully made that clear in my review too, where I'm like, listen, this is me. All right, guys. I'm looking forward to that here. And the last thing they showed in the demo we are talking about was they showed a branching kind of path based on your actions. You have to go into this area. You can either just fight your way through because the mobs in front of you are hostile, but you make it to the end. You talk to this person, and she's pissed. that you've essentially killed a ton of her people on the way here, refuses to listen to you, and it's a fight. Or then they showed the character respecing into something more stealthy, entering like a weird Shadow Realm stealth, which looked pretty cool, making it through without killing anyone, getting to the same person, and the person's super polite, super kind. Oh yeah, we don't need this thing. Yeah, take it. I have no need for this anyways. It kind of opened my mind a little bit of maybe I'm playing some games wrong earlier, because I always go for that. If they're hitting me, I am well within my rights to beat the crap out of them when it comes to video games, right?
That's the Obsidian thing, where they are very much about the choice and consequence stuff. Like they are really focused on it, and it's while you want to save quite often, much like a Bethesda game. What you choose to do, there's many different paths, and there's sometimes you're like, oh, I just did this whole thing and I do not like how it turned out. I'm gonna try the other way. So
yeah, fully agreed. And of course they showed a little bit of dialogue, and man, Obsidian's writing is so good. I love it. I guess like the super sarcastic writing doesn't appeal to everyone, but oh man, it appeals to me so much. I loved it in Outer Worlds too. Outer Worlds, I'm definitely gonna love it in this one too. Yeah, that's essentially mostly what they showed. They're gonna show more as we approach. One thing I've heard from people where it's like, why didn't they just show this when they first revealed it? And it's like, that's kind of not how game development works. The closer you get to a release date, the more polished things get, the more capture ready was the term 343 used specifically when talking about Halo Infinite and why they hadn't shown anything until like 2 months before.
They didn't want another Craig.
Exactly. So I think in general, people should just get used to seeing games at a rougher look than expected. Even Assassin's Creed Shadows, which I think we'll talk about here, had some pretty rough moments in its gameplay. But either way, Avowed, they explicitly mentioned they're in the polishing phase right now, which makes sense. I mean, the games should be releasing in 4 or 5 months-ish, right? Earlier would be nice, but coming out this year, still keep an eye out for it. Keep an eye on our site for it. Keep an eye out for a review for it, obviously, from us. And let's move on to the next one. Yeah, God, we do a lot of things in this in the news piece today. It's already been an hour. Okay, next up is, of course, Indiana Jones, which we will probably talk about a lot more on the main podcast too, because the Avowed presentation was part of a weekly, daily deep dive podcast, of which it goes Avowed yesterday. Today is going to be Metal Gear Solid 3, or Delta, or Triangle.
Delta.
Yeah, Delta. All right.
Wednesday's going to be the little thing up top, but yeah.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, you're right. I didn't see that.
Delta.
I just saw the triangle.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough. I'll call it Delta. And then Wednesday you have Ara, History Untold, and Age of Mythology together. Good pairing. Thursday, you have World of Warcraft, War Within, which I'm guessing will not appeal to most of you guys. I kind of hope that game comes to console soon. And then finally on Friday, they're saving Indiana Jones, which will give a deeper look. But we did see Indiana Jones at the event. Jesse, what did you think of the 5-6 minutes or so we saw?
They've nailed the tone. That mix of serious and goofy. It's going for that older, like 50s, 60s, going back and, hey, it's great that this friggin' white guy is going through all these ancient civilizations and breaking shit. Just fun adventures for a movie. Looks really nice. It's Machine Games. They don't go for ultra realistic. They go for slightly stylized and a little over the top and goofy. Really well in Wolfenstein, and you can see the advancements here. Material quality, lighting, a whole bunch of other stuff. It looks really good. The music's great. Troy Baker's job as Harrison Ford is about as good as I think one could hope for a sound-alike.
Fully agreed. Yeah.
And able to go from really serious but not dour to very goofy and then back to serious and murdery, like that is the Indiana Jones thing. He just kills a lot of people. A lot of people die. But it's fun.
But hey, there's no blood, so it's okay. It's all goofy.
Yeah, well, there probably will be, I bet.
There probably will be, yeah.
But yeah, quite good. Very interested to see the deep dive.
Yes, 100%. Because I'm hoping in the deep dive, because some of the complaints I thought would be more prevalent, but weren't, was that they didn't show much like uninterrupted gameplay. Generally, it was a cinematic, which I haven't played the second Wolfenstein game, but apparently those games are very cinematic heavy.
Yeah.
So it is par for the course for Machine Games.
Knowing they were going to have the deep dive, I think, is probably why, like Avowed, it wasn't some long gameplay segment, because you're going to get more gameplay.
And in general, Avowed's a hard game to advertise, I feel. Without
anything Obsidian does in general is hard to get across in a 1.5-minute trailer.
Agreed. But in the trailer, of course, they showed straight up just classic indie. I love that. And then they showed some gameplay after. They had a news piece, and they did explicitly mention a couple of things that stuck out to me, which is Machine Games are known for their love of high-stakes action and incredible set pieces, and they're talking specifically about the ship falling down. So I'm fairly certain that will be an in-game set piece as you play through it, which is something I doubt they wanted to spoil at a show, because that's usually cool stuff. And then the last thing they mention is we all remember the thrill of seeing Indy's daring and often narrow escapes, and we want to have those kind of moments in the Great Circle as well, like those kind of like heart-pumping moments.
His plot armor.
Oh yeah, to the extreme, either plot armor or fridge doors, one of the two. But what's interesting is they did have a scene in the trailer from a scene straight out of Temple of Doom. Which is kind of surprising. So we might get some flashbacks, maybe.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you make an Indiana Jones game, why not have a few of the big hits in there if you can? Because so the timeline of Indiana Jones is the first was Temple of Doom, timeline wise. Then Raiders of the Lost Ark, Last Crusade, and then on. So this is between Raiders of the Lost Ark and Last Crusade, which is a decent amount of time. So they can get to a lot of stuff.
Last Crusade might be the first chronologically.
No, the first chronologically is Temple of Doom.
Is it Temple of Doom?
1, 2 is a prequel to 1, 3 is a sequel to 1, then 4, then 5.
Either way, this fixates me between some of the games. It looks fantastic. Looks like a return. Yeah, you're right. Yes. Temple of Doom, Lost Ark, Last Crusade. Yep. Looks like a return to classic indie, right? Which is kind of what like the first 10 minutes of Dial of Destiny was, which I really enjoyed, those 10 minutes. But look out for more of it at the website, at Xbox Wire, and the YouTube channel this Friday. And look out for our website where we'll probably summarize and post a written perspective on it. But okay, sticking with Bethesda for one more game, Doom: The Dark Ages, which technically had been leaked. I want
Thanks,
to say what,
Tom Henderson.
Yeah. I think he'll say you're welcome to that, because he lives for this. Doom: The Dark Ages, which is a different take, like a significantly different take on Doom than the previous two games. We've all seen the trailer. We've all seen no real jumping, very little verticality, and it will look like slower movement. And that is very much by design, according to the developers. I saw something being floated around where they explicitly mentioned Doom Eternal being akin to driving a Formula One car, which very much makes sense. Very much a dance of death. While for Doom: The Dark Ages, they wanted something more like a monster truck.
Yeah. He's lean and mean in Eternal and very jumpy, and you're always moving. This one seems much more you are at like the height of your gear, because Doom Eternal was essentially you had Doom 2016 where he's found way after this, like probably a very long period of time after this is set, because this is a prequel,
hundreds of thousands of years.
So he was working with this order after getting his superpowers you find out about in Doom Eternal for being goddamn near impossible to kill. So this is him, best technology he had, best like gear setup, and so he can just focus more on running, gunning, and meleeing the shit out of people, because like his big morning star and his throwable shield and all that type of stuff, I think it's gonna be a much more, it'll be that mix of 2016 and Eternal where he still can move a lot and stuff, but it is focused on grounded explosive combat instead of being an acrobat all the time.
So this is the exact quote, and it's funny how quotes change. The one information I got was from a Reddit comment. But Martin, which I'm assuming is a game developer, blah, blah, blah. Either way, he mentions that if you were an F-22 fighter jet in Doom Eternal, and not an F1 car, this time around we wanted you to feel like an Abrams tank. I mean, the analogy is essentially the same, but it's interesting how like the wording changed by just people talking about it.
It is funny. The Xbox.com listing shows PlayStation. They don't care.
Really, huh? Yeah, they don't give a crap.
The one during the show. So that was the thing I always told people during the showcase. You don't see other platforms on a platform showcase. But afterwards, I doubt they would care. Like Sony's only trailer for Lego Horizon Adventures just shows Switch. Like they don't.
Yes.
You're letting people that you want people to know it, but during the show you want them to focus on you. But yeah, of everything we've heard from all the insiders who got fucking wrecked on this show,
Destroyed,
almost wrong across the board for all the stuff they've been saying for months. The only thing, and I think this makes the most sense out of any IP they own that is coming to PlayStation, is Doom: The Dark Ages as a prequel to kind of cap off the trilogy of the games they've been doing, is how they worded it. Like Phil Spencer said, he went up to Hugo and he was like, what do you want? And he was like, I want to finish this everywhere. And it makes sense. It is the case by case legacy IP. This is directly tied to 2 other games that came out on the PlayStation platform. It looks incredible. It is the IP that's always joked about being on everything as an IP, and this just looks incredible. As somebody who adored Doom Eternal and its DLC, I am extremely excited for a unbelievably gorgeous looking new one.
And it is like a decent departure gameplay wise from the 2, but that's okay. Like it still looks fun. They nailed the important part,
it makes
right?
it feel more worthy of existing by being so different gameplay wise.
Exactly. They explicitly mentioned how in the original Doom, every projectile mattered. And they kind of wanted to go back to that. And I fully agree with that, right? Like it's a big risk for id Software, I want to say, is taking a game that people already really loved and making what seems to be pretty drastic changes. But off of just that one trailer we've seen, looks like they pulled it off.
Yeah,
people are fully in.
A lot of it is like Doom 2016 did well. Doom Eternal was enormous. Like I don't think people realize how big that game was. And this looks and feels enough like it that I think people who are into 2016 will be in, and also the people who weren't into who were into 2016 but not Eternal might be back because Eternal was just too much movement for them. Yeah, because I know a lot of people like it was a little over the top with how if you stopped moving, you died. And this one is like, you've got things to do outside of that. You can block and you can use a giant mech and you can fly around on a huge weird dragon thing. Like there's so much stuff.
Really interesting changes to it. But yeah, keep an eye out for Doom, The Dark Ages when it releases next year, which is shaping up to be another one of the best years of gaming ever.
It's funny because everyone's like, I did see complaints. It's like, oh, everything's next year. I was like, they've got a bunch this year too. Yeah. I don't know what you're talking about. They just have too much. The only ones. You could say they have too much if you wanted to, because you wouldn't be wrong. They have too much for any one person to afford buying outright or having enough time to play through for most people. So that is people want to know what is Xbox's, what is their soul, what's their philosophy. It's putting out enough games in enough places with enough ways to give them money for them so that you will always be there playing. Because Phil has said before, I don't care how you play our games. I just want you playing them. That's it. That is their metric for growth and success. It's not, are you playing it on our hardware? That's the best place. Please do. But if you are other places, that's okay. As long as you're playing, you're spending money. Love you.
And of course, Doom Dark Ages will launch on Game Pass as well. I think every game we've already talked about.
Which, again, people seem surprised at, which is always funny to me.
Yeah. It's the weirdest thing. But speaking of launching on Game Pass, the big one we're going to talk about,
the big one.
Oh, big game. I don't talk about it too much. Is of course Call of Duty Black Ops 6. We've got the full confirmation. No more friggin' speculation. No more they're discussing internally. Blah blah blah. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 was officially revealed with gameplay with an extended 20-25 minute deep dive, and it is releasing day one on Game Pass, and it's going to be the same for everyone. Every platform. No slimy deals happening here.
Which Sean Layden did not like him saying.
Not at all. But yeah, I mean, we'll talk about that. But the gist of it is Black Ops 6 releases this year. It's by Treyarch. It is, I think, the first COD game in a very, very long time to be given the full 4 years of game development. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember hearing that Treyarch essentially
enough people that
we don't have time.
Yeah, because they had they had to save Cold War. They had to come in and redo Cold War, and they're like, Nope, and that's why you got the obvious DLC turned into a full release, which is still selling like crazy because it works. I know us as more tuned in people get annoyed at it, but their shitty philosophy of just take a DLC and make it into a full campaign worked. It made them a ton of money. So,
of course it did. That's Call of Duty.
And I sent you an email for one more thing if we want to talk about it after this, because I know we can't go over all 30 games. We'll be here for 5 hours.
Literally. I'll look into that momentarily. But yeah, Call of Duty. So they talked about it. Of course, zombies. I mean, it's a Black Ops game. It's zombies, but they explicitly mentioned, round-based returns. So it's not the weird kind of open world zombies that the previous game had. They mentioned continuation of the story, which still baffles me to this day how weirdly in depth and detailed the Call of Duty Black Ops zombie story is. I'll be honest. When I think of zombies, I think of just me in a house, like putting up barricades and knifing zombies for the first 3 rounds. Like that's my thought process. But no, these games have gotten very involved, very strategic, and very detailed in a story that I guess people have been following for more than a decade at this point. I don't know too much about Call of Duty. I don't really play it. The last one I played was like, I don't know, Black Ops 2, or I guess a little bit of Modern Warfare 2019. But in general, this one seems to be making some big changes. Omnidirectional sprint is a pretty big deal. I hope it is input based matchmaking, because PCs with omnidirectional sprint will be demons. They added that. They also, what else did they do? Of course, there's a proper campaign with some returning characters that look familiar. I believe some straight from Cold War. And in general, there's a lot of stuff. All right, just watch the deep dive, watch the direct that happened right after the showcase, which is funny seeing some reactions just immediately turn it off. Like, yeah, we don't really care. And even us, when it was happening, I was kind of just looking into Xbox Wire posts and reading them, trying to get more information.
Because trying to get things set for the site, which thankfully we got a lot of articles out, which was very nice. Thank you, everybody.
Yes. And the last thing we'll talk about with the main Xbox showcase is, of course, what seems to be for more and more people, and honestly, maybe myself at this point, and easily the trailer I've rewatched the most, Expedition 33.
If you're wondering what the Clair Obscur thing means, it is it's essentially Twilight in French.
Okay, but it's a subheading for the game, right?
It's the prime heading with Expedition 33 being the subheading. Yeah. So the game is essentially Clair Obscur, and this is Expedition 33, or it's the whole thing. I don't know, they're French. But this is, if you're curious, this is essentially French Persona.
Yeah.
But the big thing for me is the reactive combat. You have to dodge, you have to parry, you have to either try and get a super parry, you have to time your attacks to do more damage. Like, you're never just sitting there watching, unless you don't want to do super damage. Yeah. Like the whole time,
down to like easy or something.
Yeah, you are. It's got one of the coolest premises. So you are in this weird alternate beat the shit up France. As you can tell, there's a beat up Eiffel Tower, which I'm sure a lot of French people like. Absolutely gorgeous game. You play from the third person when you're walking around and exploring. Very hyper stylized environments, enormous Souls-like enemies. Like this is a group of 30 devs working in Unreal Engine 5, a lot of ex-Ubisoft employees who love turn-based RPGs and various JRPGs, and wanted to do a European one of those, which we've never really seen at this look. And I don't know what the budget is. It's done by Kepler, who are one hell of a publisher if you go and look through their listing of games they have had, and they are all in on Game Pass. So it is a world where this lady known as the Paintress essentially has been counting down people's ages by painting a number, and every time she paints that number, everyone of that age just vanishes into thin air, and it's like they don't exist anymore. And as you see in the beginning of the trailer, she goes from 34 to 33, and everyone that's 33 years old just goes, pah. And so you are an expedition member, calling yourselves Expedition 33, because that's the number that's up on the rock, and you're trying to reach her and stop her. And everyone's been going for years and years and failing. But
essentially every year they send one expedition over to try and get rid of it. and it's not going well.
And the music was so goddamn good. They put out 4 tracks from it, including like just the trailer track, which mixed 2 of like all 3 of them. So you got 3 separate tracks and then the trailer track. But then the audio in the trailer for the combat goes so well with the music. Like I would call that a masterclass in editing because the game looked good.
Agreed.
But the way they represented it, and especially the camera movements during combat, sell the impact so much more than when it's just static and you just see someone run up and go cha-cha, cha-cha, and then a number pops up.
Straight up.
Like that's what always killed me with some turn-based stuff.
Especially the older games, a lot of them. And like the big issue with turn-based games has always kind of been how slow they are sometimes, where it's like, I get it, we did the attack, move on, go, 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 go.
Yeah.
This one is quick and
can't help
really stylish.
I'm gonna put the music up that I had. It's God, the music for this one is just freaking
just incredible. And the way you're right, the way the trailer is edited, like I've seen a lot of reactions, and the instant hit when that music picks up and the turn-based starts, like people are like, "Whoa, what the heck is this?" I am now fully into what previously looked like a relatively generic. I mean, not generic, like it still looked pretty cool, but I mean, it's UE5, and people probably thought, I kind of thought it'd be another like Souls-like or action adventure game, you know? But no, full-on turn-based, and I like how they didn't stop in the gameplay. You know what I mean? Some gameplay would be like they show the turn, they'd be like, okay, look, you can see all our stuff, and then go. They went turn, like someone actually playing the game and already knows the moves where they are.
You can always see on the side, it's a gradient, parry, dodge, and jump. So when you're not taking a turn and the enemy's taking a turn, you have to hit those buttons at the right time to be able to avoid the attack. And I wouldn't be surprised, like if it's a big sweeping attack, you can just jump it type of thing. Like people,
we saw that near the end of the trailer. You see like a giant sweeping attack and dodge or parry pop up randomly on the screen.
And then there's the gradient parry, which is the one where she goes all out and just freaking like eat shit. But I bet you there might be, maybe there's a meter on using that one often, or the timing's really tough.
Yes.
But yeah, it's just
for
like,
those in chat who may remember this game, my immediate thought when watching this, a lot of people go Lost Odyssey. I go one little further back. I go Legend of Dragoon, which had a system where you'd have to obviously basically like a QTE events, but throughout the attack, and some of them got real not complicated, but real like precise timing based. And immediately that was my thought for this, and I've been wanting games to go back to that method for literally decades at this point because I loved it so much. It's really exciting seeing a game like this do that. It's interesting that it's straight up just Clive, the voice acting, right? It's Ben Starr who did Clive from Final Fantasy 16. A lot of people recognize that voice immediately. Apparently the female lead, I haven't looked into it, but apparently it's Shadowheart from Baldur's Gate 3. I think I'll have to double check that, but that's what some people were saying. Either way, it looks like they've got a decent cast. It looks fantastic. And for a debut game, wow. And also coming next year is the surprising part. A lot of times you'll see gameplay like this and things and no date, nothing, and it'll come back like 3 or 4 years later, realistically. No, this is set to release next year on Xbox Game Pass. Really exciting stuff.
Yeah, people are like, oh, you like turn-based? It's like, I like this type of turn-based where it is, you have to do more. Like I get, as much as I could enjoy the Persona games, it does just end up feeling like I'm just watching shit a lot. And in this one, it doesn't feel like I'm watching. There's even aiming where you've got the gun and you're trying to hit weak points to do extra stuff. Like having I'm perfectly fine having turn-based, but that was also a problem I had with Baldur's Gate 3, where it just took so long to see so many of the same animations. The best thing about Baldur's Gate 3 was how your moves could interact with the environment in the world, and that was awesome. But then the weight of seeing the computer doing their stuff just eventually dragged me down a little bit too much.
Yeah, I loved everything about Baldur's Gate 3 except for the combat, personally. Like it was not for me. And I like turn-based combat. Yeah, just not like that.
Yeah, this is the one for me, I would say.
Yeah. No, it makes perfect sense. Okay, that's about it for the Xbox Showcase.
They had more. If you want to go through everything, that'll be the podcast on Saturday. We'll go over it with John and Nick. We will go over every single game on Saturday.
That's going to go on for a while, so you guys should buckle in for that for sure.
Yeah.
All right, as we move on to the next topic, because there's still a lot to talk about, I noticed that we have...
We'll hit them faster.
Yeah, well, you will. We have almost 200 people watching, which is quite a bit, but only around 80 or so likes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, what? Let's get that up to 100 ideally. And before we move on to the next section, again, it's sounds like begging, but it really does help. Like
Yeah.
genuinely, especially while we're live with discoverability, it helps a lot. So if
Yeah.
you're watching with an account and you have the time, just click that little plus, not plus, thumbs up
I know
button.
bits and pieces. Mixtape looks incredible. We'll go over all of it on the weekend.
Yeah.
This show's normally an hour. We're already 90 minutes. So
Jesus. Yeah, we'll skip through. Okay. What's funny is though is our next section has the potential to be long, which is of course Summer Game Fest.
Yeah, just pull a few things out that most excited you.
I mean, the very first one, of course, I feel like we got to talk about is Lego Horizon. We talked a bit about it. We talked a fair bit about it actually in the last podcast. But hey, this is a new show. Lego Horizon looks pretty cool. Coming to Switch and essentially everything except Xbox. What do you think that means for Sony and for the gaming landscape?
I think eventually it will be on Xbox. I don't see why it wouldn't be. Too. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Like when it's this type of thing, it's the soft launch into the we want to make more money from our games stuff, which everyone has realized. When hardware was very different, it made more sense to focus solely on exclusives, really. And like even Nintendo's hardware profile, like what they're going for and able to do graphically is very different from the competition. So their stuff going over to a 4K box will look infinitely better than it does in their machine. I get why they wouldn't want that. But so much of these other machines now are really similar to each other. So actual porting work is easier. It's never easy, but it's easier.
I mean, to the point where I feel like we might see these smaller games come directly to mobile at one point too, right? I mean, we saw PC Mirage. It's currently on iPhones. It's not a small game. But yeah, no, it's in general, the days of console exclusives are slowly but surely coming to an end.
Yeah,
and I'm not sure
there will still be some, I think, for a while. Like we just saw a bunch
at
of
least
Xbox.
the next 5 years.
But even if they're timed, like if it shifts to timed exclusivity, because it also is very hard to launch on every platform, passing all the certs, having to patch everything every time, like the bandwidth for that, like PlayStation is only just now getting used to PC day and date, and they had to buy Nixes to really help them with that because Nixes is so good at it.
They've had a couple not good PC
like Naughty Dog wanting to do their own stuff, but not having any experience. It's really hard, especially because PlayStation's API and the way all their stuff works is not the same as Xbox. Xbox is a fork of Windows, so going from Xbox to Windows is a very different thing than going from just PlayStation to Windows, and we've seen it. So
and exactly more. As long as we have Game Pass, we're winning, and that I think should be the prevailing mentality for a lot of Xbox gamers, which is, what the hell do I care?
You know, it's funny. I was wrong. On the PlayStation Store, it just says PS5 for this.
Really?
On the PS5 channel, it only says PlayStation 5 for Lego Horizon.
But yeah,
not even PC. They don't even have PC.
That's crazy.
They are
That's
weird.
crazy. They're just trying to keep that illusion up.
Well, it's the thing. They're happy to obfuscate the truth in a way that Microsoft's not allowed to, really.
Yes, agreed. Both by fans and probably by corporations.
And they shouldn't be allowed to, which I'm fine with it. Trust me.
Agreed.
Yeah, in general, so people want to know what is the selling point of platforms if their games are everywhere. And for the most part, it's where your friends are, what you're used to, and the things are still there. Like Lego Horizon Adventures going to another platform doesn't hurt anything. I know Sony, I think, will rely on the FOMO a little more. Nintendo is just Nintendo. They have a very specific fan base. They have a very specific pipeline of just nonstop releases that people keep buying like crazy. There's no one else like them, really. But you talk, because I gotta let my landlord in to fix the sink.
Yeah, I was about to say, was that my doorbell? But yeah, I mean, we've talked about this a lot in the podcast, right? Or I've seen them talk about it. But being an Xbox player, having an Xbox console, I've talked to a lot of personal friends who are like, what's the point of the console? Oh, Xbox is dead. And it's not. Having that console, having that hardware guarantees you that the vast majority of what we saw yesterday, or I guess the day or two ago, and what we'll see next year on the same time, and the year after, and the year after that, will be playable on your things. You know, it's yes, someone else might be able to play it, because I personally fully believe that within, let's be generous and say 10 years, console exclusives will be a thing of the past. Maybe not for everyone yet, but for Xbox, I fully think at that point, their games will be releasing on competing consoles. And I think I put competing like that because I don't think they'll be as competing or as console warrior as they used to be, right? So if you're an Xbox
especially
gamer,
when Xbox is, you can just play almost anything on it anyways by default.
exactly. Heck, I'm pretty sure in 5-10 years, most TVs that'll be being sold will have the ability to just pick up a controller and play Xbox right then and there, right? And I fully expect PlayStation to be a day and date PC at that point, like fully, like that's a friggin' given. They're just slowly bringing that guillotine down on the whole only PlayStation exclusive. People just don't see it yet. Like, but yeah, that's a big round. We can talk about that for a very long time. Let's move on to more stuff at Summer Game Fest. I'm just kind of just mention some of the stuff that I thought that stuck out to me. Civ 7 was announced, and it's coming to consoles at the same time as PC. That was kind of cool, I think, because I don't think that's usually the case.
No, I think it was always a later thing, but I'm not 100% sure. I've never really played them, but obviously it's one of the biggest franchises people know of ever. So
yeah. We're getting another proper VR game, which I think will surprise a lot of people because they still expect VR games as tech demos, which is no longer the case. The tech has gotten there, you know. With Arkham Batman Shadow?
Yeah, they
Arkham
said
Shadow.
it's a full game. You're going through your Batman first person, beating the shit out of the Rat King's minions.
Yeah. Of course, a big Street Fighter 6 a crossover, which
they don't do. They don't do crossover, so it's very interesting to see them doing that with essentially it's Fatal Fury. Because of the new Fatal Fury game.
We got Terry Bogard in a Street Fighter game. That's friggin' awesome.
Yeah, it was only ever Capcom versus SNK for seeing that before. It's never been like a mainline thing. Like Tekken was more on that and other fighters, but not Street Fighter. They were always like sacred with their really weird timeline.
Yeah, you're right. Street Fighter, yeah. And we're getting Valorant is coming to consoles, which I'm guessing for most people watching doesn't mean much, but it is a pretty damn big deal. It's something I expected sooner, I'll be honest. And I'm still kind of surprised that League Wild Rift isn't on consoles yet. But for Xbox gamers, they have a really large, I don't want to say advantage, but like a really large perk playing on Xbox and having Game Pass. Actually, I'm kind of curious. I wonder if you can play on PlayStation, but have your Riot account linked to your Xbox's Game Pass account, if you'd still get all that stuff. Huh. I should look into that because that's kind of interesting. Either way, Valorant, if you have Game Pass, you get all the agents for free, including the new ones. You get an up 20% EXP bonus, I think, on the battle passes, blah, blah, blah. For those who don't know, Valorant is another tactical shooter in the vein of CS and CSGO. It's extremely popular, extremely toxic on PC, so I'm curious how the player base will be on consoles. And yeah, it is finally coming to consoles soon. Did they give a date? I know a beta.
They had a beta. Yeah, the beta's on both. I don't think there's anything else besides that, though.
Yes, beta's coming on June 14th, and no date yet, but it's probably releasing this year. Other than that,
I do see 9 lives, 210. What happened to the ABK Game Pass drop? Insiders were all wrong. That's what we'll see. There should be a Game Pass drop next week. We will see what it is.
I mean, it makes sense to spread out good news throughout, right? Because we've seen maybe not to this momentum before, but we've seen really good Xbox showings or news being instantly friggin' overshadowed by some random negative thing that
they tried.
Decided to focus.
We had to do a lot of work on the forums to get them to stop.
Yeah. God, just give it a few days.
I think the other big Summer Game Fest thing itself for me was Monster Hunter Wilds.
Yes, of course. I'm trying to see if there's anything else worth. I guess for Xbox players, Power World getting dedicated servers is a big deal. But other than that, yeah, it really is Monster Hunter Wild. Fantastic showing.
Funnily enough, way better than the PlayStation just had a cutscene, and this was cutscene into gameplay, which was nice. Very different gameplay where you got yourself a Monster Hunter style chocobo, and your pal does talk. Your palico.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
Right at the beginning, he points something out and is talking. I was like, "What the heck?"
I didn't realize that was the calico. Palico, sorry, but
he's just on the back.
It is cross play. I'm pretty sure, by the way, which I think is the first time. Yeah, which is the first time a Monster Hunter game has been crossplay, which is a relatively big deal. Especially as the walls between platforms start to, fall apart.
It's very Unreal Engine 3 color tone to start with. Knowing them. So depending on the there are certain things that make it very different environment-wise, so there will be variety to it. I forget what the mechanic was to make it like lush or something like that, but seasonal changes or time changing. But yeah, I am more into the world style, which this is going for, than this is built for big
handhelds.
This is built for something strong and not for handhelds, so you get a very different scope on it. Creatures look insane, like always, but they look high fidelity insane, like full on RE engine. We're going all out Capcom shit. I am way into it. Hopefully I get my insect
and
glaive.
They're showing a lot, which makes me think, even though it is technically 25, it might be another early release. Because I'm pretty sure Monster Hunter World released in January. Yeah, January 2016.
Yeah, well, they did say they could not guarantee that this one would come out in the fiscal year 25, which ends in March. Like they couldn't guarantee it. Not that it won't, just that not yes it is. So but one of the big things alongside this was the fact that you can finally buy Monster Hunter World in the SEA market. The whole of it. Like Korea couldn't buy it, no one could buy it on Xbox until this month or something. Like it was a region exclusive locked up by PlayStation. No more. Finally.
So weird, dude. So weird.
Because there are bonuses for going, and I know people are talking about news that's hitting today. We will do like the Dragon Age and Visions of Mana stuff. We will hit that on Thursday because I need news for then.
And we are going really long again. The show is usually an hour.
Incredibly long, so we're going to shift probably very quickly. Talk about Ubisoft Forward. How's that?
Yeah, Ubisoft Forward happened yesterday. They showed a fair bit, but the main things were, of course, the Star Wars Outlaws extended demo and trailer at the end, and then Assassin's Creed Shadows, same thing. Let's talk about Outlaws first. I know that I'm not too big on Star Wars if I'm not playing like a Jedi, but I know for a lot of people, just looking at that gameplay, this is the Star Wars game they've wanted to play for a very long time, right? It is technically, they said, the first open world Star Wars game, which probably doesn't include SWTOR, of course, more of an MMO. But yeah, Jesse, what did you think of the showing?
Looked like everything I wanted. Story's interesting enough. The gameplay looked varied. I'm curious how deep it can get on the on-ground stuff, because it is Ubisoft Massive, who, by the way, also announced that after this one's done, they're going on to the Division 3, and I'm extremely happy.
Oh, damn. Okay,
yeah,
nice.
That was in the post-show. This looks absolutely gorgeous, because Snowdrop is the best engine out there after or alongside Unreal Engine 5. Like, people are like, it's not going to look like this and run 60. It's like, that's the thing with Snowdrop. Go play Avatar, one of the best looking games ever, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, but you can get a really good looking 60 FPS mode out of it. And it's like, really, I'm all in. I like the Ubisoft open world formula. I have always liked it. This is very much for me. I will be all over this if I can, because it's coming out right at Gamescom. God damn it.
Yeah, the release date's kind of interesting, especially early access with it, which means the embargo would be even earlier.
Well, that's the thing where it's like, I normally don't get to play anything unless I'm either streaming it or reviewing it. So if I can't review it, and hopefully like Gyoza would be able to, Fairy Empire, or someone on the team who's not at Gamescom, then I would at some point only ever get to play it by streaming it.
Yeah, makes sense. Because I think it is literally, the embargo is going to be while we're at Gamescom. I have a feeling. Yeah. But yeah, Star Wars Outlaws.
If I get it early enough, I will just no life it for 3 days and do the whole review.
Heavily recommend everyone who watched the stream live to go back, watch these trailers on your TV or on your computer in 4K, especially that 4-minute kind of overview trailer at the end. Looks significantly better and honestly fantastic. That's Star Wars Outlaws. And of course, the other main thing they showed at the show, they also showed some of continued support for Honor, which is somehow still alive. Holy crap. And Skull and Bones, which is getting some pretty wacky updates, like a friggin' dragon coming later this year. Either way, the main thing they showed was more of an extended gameplay look at Assassin's Creed Shadows, or codenamed Red as we all used to know it, which is AC finally going to Japan. Something the fans have been wanting for a while, but something Ubisoft is always like, there's a ton of games in Japan. We don't need to be here, right? But nope. Now they're here. We're there. We start 2 characters. You play as the Shinobi, the Iga Shinobi Naoe, and the Samurai Yasuke. And they showed gameplay of both throughout that. That was like a 10-minute, 8-minute demo. For those who didn't see it, initially it was Yasuke.
Minutes.
13 minutes? Holy crap, yeah. Damn. Okay. For those who didn't see it, they did kind of exactly what a lot of us were expecting, which is Yasuke is like the bruiser, the hey, I'm not gonna climb up a bunch of buildings and
Yeah,
stealth my way
he's a
through things. I'm gonna
6'2" man in an era where the average height was 5'5" for guys and shorter for ladies. Like it was, people were not
yeah.
even as tall as they are now in Japan. So he is like the big brooding brute, Hulk that you would normally fight in these games. You are him. So you've got your mix, you've got your swords, and you've got your gigantic freaking club.
Yeah, that spiked club. They showed some combat and it looked pretty good. Yeah, some people are saying it looked a lot like Odyssey/Origins, and that's kind of the point, I think. If this game is to merge those two styles of Assassin's Creed back together. Either the combat looked pretty impactful. It also looked decently unfinished, which is expected of a look at a game months out from release, because right now is the polishing phase for video games before they release. Watch the gameplay footage yourself, but man, I swear, I think one of the guys he smacked in the face does not have a face anymore.
Yeah, it literally
right.
just gets showed on stream while doing that. I don't think he has a head because there are decapitations. Like you were wondering while we were watching it, is like, okay, cudgel, not club.
Cudgel. All right.
Jesus Christ.
In fact, there's probably a fancy name for that.
Yeah, you knock off armor, you just wreck people, but it looked like It looked like them just playing a game, not highly editing a vertical slice. You've got some super abilities. You just jump like 15 feet and did a big old hit, but it's always going to have that crazy Isu powered shit. But it looks really fun.
It did have armor. That looked, I think, maybe a little different from previous AC games. Just like 2 bars under the people.
It was much more of like a Division style where you can break specific armor pieces, especially as him, because she is, as we get into her gameplay, she is much more stealth focused. The very first time you can ever go prone, and she is the assassin. She's focused on not being seen, much more in the early Ezio vibes of not being able to just kill an entire crowd of people like Yasuke can, because he's a gigantic man.
Near the middle of the gameplay demo, they explicitly mention, hey, we got to go kill this dude in this castle. And they give you the option right then and there to switch between characters, which I really appreciate, because I feel like even though you can technically play through the whole game as one of the characters, being given that option will make most people go like, okay, this is a stealthy mission. I'll probably go the ninja. Oh, this is more of I want to break this guy's entire castle to pieces. Let me go Yasuke, right? They switched over to Naue. They show what looks to be, honestly, one of the better stealth gameplays I've seen, period, in a third-person game. Dodging people, taking out lights, being stealthy, instantly assassinating, people not screaming super loudly as they're dying and no one hearing anything. Like, God. But overall, they showed more stealth gameplay. They showed a little bit of combat at the end too, after she gets, because every stealth game, you get discovered at the end.
And thankfully, you can turn off candles and turn them back on. It's funny with the naming. It should be extinguish, like put out or light or extinguish. But yeah,
I think it might be a non-American thing, because everyone here says turn off or on for lights.
But even for candles,
that I know of, even for candles, so you turn the candle off. Usually,
yeah, no. You put out the candle is how we would normally say it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Because it's not a, it's not a switch. It's a thing. It's like an action you have to do to stop.
They showed some combat, and they also showed her get away, and then that's when the traditional kind of climbing mechanics were shown. Or I don't know if it's traditional. I think it is Origins or Odyssey. You're right. You can climb anything, but I don't think Yasuke will be able to. So I'm curious how they'll kind of, balance that, juggle that. Either way, really good showing for Assassin's Creed Shadows. If you're on the fence about the game, give that a look. I think there's also some more gameplay shown in various other places, which I haven't seen. But the game's coming out November 15th this year, November 12th, early access. Keep an eye out on the channel for our review, of course. And yeah, hopefully it's a good game. Okay, all right. Moving on right away. The next big thing, and this might be the biggest thing, to be honest, was Phil Spencer's interview with Ryan of IGN, which was the same day as a showcase, I believe, maybe like 3 or 4 hours later.
It was 4 hours later when it was recorded and 6 hours later when it was aired.
Yeah, that makes sense. The interview was live in front of a crowd, but it wasn't streamed live. They did a weird thing where they put like these tweets on, but the tweets sounded super corporate. Maybe they summarized them. I'm not sure. Because then when I wasn't even going to watch the interview, I'll be honest. Because I'm like, oh, it's just Phil doing corporate answers. Then I went back and actually watched the interview, which is only like 28 minutes. And I highly recommend everyone here to give it a look. and it's essentially sounded like two friends just talking about gaming. It was really lax. It was really well done. Yes, Ryan didn't ask Phil a ton of super hard hitting gotcha questions, as some people
But
wanted him to.
like
For some
a lot
reason.
of people really wanted it to be a hard-hitting journalistic interview when it's a PR event for both companies. Like both companies were there for public relations, selling their products. IGN was there. Microsoft is a partner of theirs at this public relations event. So getting any of those questions is normally not the norm, because this was marketing for both. Like, this is IGN. We get you on, we'll make money. You come here, you can sell more stuff. Like, that's the point of it. It's not some political press conference and you've got to ask the hard questions of world leaders type stuff. It's also, you can't talk about people you fired. Not when you're a public company.
100%.
When you're an executive at a public company, there are too many legal liabilities. You can't talk about it directly. You can only talk about it in vague generality, legally. Like, there's no incentive ever for any company to do what we would love for them to be able to, and actually talk normal and be like, this is exactly why it happened, and this is exactly where everyone went. It's like, no, I can say, this is generally why it happened, and this is generally what we've done. And that's it. That's all you're ever going to get. So real life can't
The
be what
interview was
we
pretty
hope
good.
all the time.
Yeah, that's why when Ryan did ask him about the studio closures, the answer was very corporate. That's kind of all you're ever going to get on that. Hard decisions are made. Businesses suck. Capitalism sucks. It's just, that's the nature of these things, man. It's really, I mean, heck, just a couple of days ago, I think we saw a Japanese studio essentially tell like 80 people, hey, you can leave right now if you want, like for voluntary resignment, stuff like that. Like, it's not exclusive to the West, guys, as much as people make it seem like it is. But yeah, but either way, the interview was pretty good. They talked about the rumored handheld. Ryan asked him about it up front, and he's like, "Hey, I feel like you'll be excited about our future hardware plans." Which honestly, more and more smoke of this handheld existing, which has me and a lot of other people pretty excited.
And not just about the handheld. Phil wants one. He says you have to ask Sarah about that because that is her purview. He's her boss, but for the plans, it comes down to her, and then her selling it to, she makes final decisions and then has to sell it to people above her. But or however they do it, we actually don't know. It's just an assumption of mine. But then he's like, and then Ryan asks a question: would it be cloud? And Phil's like, no. I think it would be local compute, aka the Roger Ally, the ROG Hog, or the Legion Go, which he both shouted out. But an actual Xbox handheld would be a native Xbox device, but with access to, so the rumors, the inside talk, which could be full shit, because man, all the leakers were wrong on this show. So many of them. But like, the way Phil's talking about it and the way everyone has talked about their future plans and stuff, like having that local compute with the ability, because they are on if I remember correctly, it's an offshoot of the Windows 8 kernel is the Xbox operating system. If they could access the Windows operating system, that would let them be able to play any PC game that they can get working through an emulation layer if it's running ARM, because ARM is so much more battery efficient. That's why the Steam Deck can actually be a handheld console. It's why, like, compared to these, you get an hour of top tier gaming on the ROG and everything, unless the Ally X is going to have an enormous battery, like that type of stuff. So
the battery will be interesting. We'll have to see.
Yeah, so it would be it would not be a native handheld with the Windows OS. It would be a native handheld with the Xbox OS with access to Windows just for games, not for like game launchers and games. There's no way they're going to give you Windows access, because then you can start hacking Xbox games, and they don't want that, no matter how hard they try.
Shouldn't be. Consoles and like dedicated handles like that should still be a pretty seamless pick up and play experience. Like, I have the ROG Ally and I love it. Like, it's great. I don't use it enough, but I do love it. But it requires like an hour and a half, 2 hours of just updates and random setups and things like that.
And that you can't, Windows Sleep just doesn't work very often, and you don't get that console boot up experience. So
exactly, like, imagine you got one of these for your kids for Christmas, and the first 2 hours are you like looking up YouTube videos and guides and how to get things working. Like, it just can't be that. Another thing Phil mentions in the interview, which I thought was hilarious, because Nick wanted Phil to go all out, F you, Sony, right? And he did. He threw some shade at Sony in the showcase, where he's like, for the first time in 10 years, everyone will have the same Call of Duty experience at the same time, right? This time, in the interview, he explicitly says, and we're not doing shady, slimy platform things to force you to play the way we want you to.
No, everyone took that as just a shot at PlayStation, especially Sean Layden on Twitter.
Yeah.
But it's also a shot at what they used to do. Like, they used to do the same
100%.
thing. They never did it as bad, but they did a month. Like, they had a month of exclusivity on stuff instead of the year that PlayStation would do. So, and he has said repeatedly he didn't like it and he didn't want to do it. And when time has come, they haven't done it with any releases they've put out. Like, nothing they have has that.
He was at Xbox when they did stuff like that. So clearly he was all complicit. And it's like, come on, guys. Come on.
He said that
Reality
before.
is
It's like people want to absolve me of Xbox One decisions. Like, no, I was there. I was high up in the company and I was a part of those decisions. You can't just absolve me of them because you want to like me vicariously through the internet. Like, you got to, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Calls out Sony, calls out previous Xbox, calls out, I feel like Nintendo a little bit too, maybe here and there. Either way, the interview is pretty fun. The summary I got for it is actually terrible. It's just the friggin' IGN tweets, which did not.
No, those IGN tweets were just their article stubs. Essentially, this is what we're going to write an article about, and don't go if you went by that tweet thread and like, oh, what a shitty interview. It's like, no, just go watch the actual interview. The actual interview is good. It's a back and forth between people familiar.
Stick out to you, Jesse, that you wanted to mention?
Again, focused on forward compatibility, again, because it seems more and more clear that the rumors about ARM and handhelds and all that seems really clear.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
I really do think that, like, that's why the Xbox solution for external storage is plug and play, because they always had this in mind type of thing. Like, they always had a, what if we could do one of these in mind, and that needs to be plug and play, because changing an SSD on a handheld is possible if you know what you're doing and are not very scared, because most people are just going to look at that. How do I even find these screws? Oh my God, look at all this shit. I got to unhook little ribbon cables that snap. Like, it's terrifying. But if you
also,
just
like,
have
even taking off the cases for the PS5, like the covers, is like, am I
I had to walk my son through because he was afraid he was going to snap it all.
Yeah, straight up. But one thing he mentioned, which I think, again, people will ignore and be like, no, that's not true, I don't believe you, is that right now, today, Xbox has the most specifically console users it's ever had in its entire history. That's a big deal for people.
It was during a rant where it was like, we've got more console players than ever. Since Game Pass has started, we sell more games than ever. Their game sales have gone up with Game Pass. And he's, again, look at all the repeat customers, all the repeat devs and publishers that keep coming back for Game Pass deals, like we saw with Beethoven and Dinosaur. They had the Artful Escape. Now they have Mixtape. Like, people really want, oh, Game Pass is dying. Oh, Xbox is dying. It's like, no, they're making more money than ever. They just haven't grown in the areas they wanted to. They wanted to grow more Game Pass subs. They wanted to sell, I don't even know if they wanted to sell more consoles because they haven't made as many.
Yeah,
but like, they're growing.
I think they'll probably have a good amount this holiday season.
He has said they're growing a ton in cloud, which means they've probably shifted more socks over there too. Like, why wouldn't they? If they are growing in cloud, they need capacity. They're making, if it's making them money there, they can focus on it. They never ignore anything, but they can. It's that everything approach that is very different. It's not Nintendo, what Nintendo's doing now. It's not what Sony has been doing, even though Sony themselves have just shifted from we're focusing on sales to we're focusing on growth per user and making more money per user. It doesn't mean they ignore sales. They still want to sell more hardware. I'm imagining they want to keep up with PS4. I doubt they want to try and shoot by it anymore, though.
Even like logically, it makes sense. Game Pass has crazy retention, right? In terms of console plays. If you're on a console,
Jez said that the average Game Pass sign-up stays on Game Pass for 18 months.
Exactly. And if you're on Game Pass, you've already paid for that, right? Or you're paying for it monthly. But either way, it's a cost you're not seeing immediately. It means you're playing on this console. If you're playing on this console, chances are you're gonna buy things that interest you too, right? If you're playing Fortnite, you're gonna buy random skins. Warzone, you're gonna buy a Gundam skin. Things like that. Even logically, I know a lot of people only look from their own bubble of Reddit or Twitter, where they're like, I'm not going to pay for any game because I know it's going to go on sale in 4 months or it's going to come to Game Pass in a year and a half. Guess what? The vast majority of people don't care or think like that. Yeah, my camera's a 4K camera. I don't know why it looks
I'm sure for you natively it looks fine, but for some reason what's being sent to me from StreamYard is very fuzzy today. Don't know why. Might be my end.
I'll look into that.
But yeah.
But yeah, in general, it makes sense even logically, right? And it's also why I don't think they will ever, unless you'll have like 2 million players, abandon hardware because they still have a big hardware audience. Yes, not the biggest. And yes, it's not growing, which means you can't like focus entirely on it, right? You need to grow. It's capitalism. You always got to be growing. That being said, doesn't mean they abandon it. They're still making Surfaces, guys. You guys remember Surfaces?
And as a division, people are like, oh, just make PC versions. And it's like, well, as a division, they've got the hardware that's part of theirs. If you start using other people's hardware for PC, you've got to start paying them. It's not yours. Like, and everything is a budget. Like they have to remove from their budget the server costs of Azure. They're not allowed to have that for free because that would be an unfair advantage. It's why Twitch does not get free servers from Amazon. It's part of your budget. You're not actually paying them, but you're acting as if you've spent it in your overall budget, because otherwise it's the unfair advantage thing. So like they will always have that, especially with the cloud growing and getting better and better as their hardware gets better and more built for it. If they move to the AV1 encoder type of thing, like just that alone, how much better of an image you can get at lower bandwidth, like all that type of stuff combines, and you'll always have it.
Yeah, no, it's just in general, it makes sense. The future of Xbox looks pretty freaking good. Again, for those watching, take a listen to the interview. I know it's that friggin' answer for the studio closures is super corporate. I know that's the only one that was that corporate. The rest of the interview is worth listening to, in my opinion. Gives you more of an idea of what's happening at Xbox, how people are feeling. Phil felt pretty friggin' confident, and I know like before the show, people are like, "Oh man, Phil's gonna be like so uncomfortable up there, and he's gonna be like attacked, and he's gonna feel awful." And it's like, no, the exact opposite happened. They had a great damn show, super confident where they are and where they're going, and they're not afraid to show it. You know?
Outside of a few select instances, even like when Phil, then Matt, and then Sarah all showed up during the stream, like no one cared. It's that thing. Life itself is so hard. We are all so busy, and we don't actually know most of the people who were fired. So for those reasons, you just forget pretty quickly. It's really hard to remember everyone and care about everything forever. It can always be in the back of your mind. There may be people who are like, I'm all out, I can't stand this company. Like I saw some people who were hosting post shows do. But as much as I love Arcane, Austin, and Tango Gameworks' output and feel bad for them and the other two, it's like, it's still my hobby. And I will pick and choose how I give money. I'm not going to be loyal to a company, but if they're putting out really good looking shit, that's also punishing the other devs who you are supposed to care about if you don't support their stuff. So like, where does it end? You're like, I hate Xbox, so I don't care if they fire these other 20,000 people that work there because I don't like these executives. I get it. I don't like I don't like anything they did either, because I know the reasons why. I know the fundamental logical reasons why all of these publishers who have tons of money are firing people. I get it. I don't care. That's not my issue. That's their issue. And when I know that they've got hundreds of billions of dollars coming in over the years, that like they could afford it. It's just not how business works. I get it, but I hate it.
Yeah, it sucks. But okay. Ending off our show on a bit of a more lighter note. We have a news article talking about how an Xbox, one of the original Xboxes, was donated to a charity shop, and it could fetch thousands of dollars. It's one of the green Xboxes. It was made to promote the 2003 Hulk film. God, do you remember that? The one with Eric Bana, I think. Only 50 of these were ever made. And I think the donation went to the British Heart Foundation. And it could be worth up to £9,000. Which is quite a bit.
Yeah, for Canadian, that's like 13, 14 grand.
Yeah, it is.
Head math, 11-ish for dollars. So I put the link in chat if you are in the UK and you're interested in it and you got a lot of friggin' money. It's there. It's for a good cause. Good old Collingwood pointed it out to me on the forums. So thank you.
Nice. Yeah, nice, lighter, more happy, positive note to end it off on. And I think that about covers it. We went exactly double the usual time, which is not too bad, considering.
And if we had covered everything at every show, it would have been about 4 hours.
Yes.
So expect a really long podcast on Saturday, which is going to suck because we might have to do. Maybe the charity, the podcast can be the end of the subathon or something, because I don't know how long that's going to go. Again, we're back Thursday for headlines. 10 a.m. normal time. John will be back. We'll start going over some news and maybe lightly touch on his trip, but we will definitely get into his trip a lot on the podcast as we go and break down the entire showcase and go over some of the news from the week. That'll be, of course, right after the first ever Xbox Era subathon. We got a PayPal link. I'll get it in the description for this episode. It's just on the front page of the website. You see donate now at the top. If you got anything, it's to help us pay for John's trip to LA and then 5 of us going to Germany in August for Gamescom, which our goal is 8,000. Anything helps, any bit we can. Otherwise, it all goes on a credit card and we get a lot of debt because we're going no matter what. But you guys can really help us feel a lot better about the trip and maybe be able to, pay back Aarsal and pre-drag and stuff too. So
nice.
It would be great.
Thank you very much for having me on. Thank you for letting me host. And I know the blurry camera. I'll try and fix that, make sure it doesn't happen because it didn't happen on Saturday.
Yeah, you never know if it's my end, your end, or just something weird with StreamYard.
Yeah. But thank you everyone for tuning in. Keep an eye on our channel for a review that might or might not be dropping tomorrow. And of course, the show on Thursday, the subathon on Friday, and the main podcast. God, we are busy. We're so busy. God damn. Best time of the year, though. Best time of the year. Thank you very much for tuning in, everyone. And we hope you guys have a good remaining Not E3 week.
Ciao for now.